Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben.
This is Diego Sanchez, Randy Couture,
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 130. Dennis Grove here with Kasper Ozolowski on a cold Wednesday, the 28th of June, here out of Melbourne, Australia, after a fun weekend of fights, lots of legends, a bit of controversy, some new champions, and some interesting things happen. Isn't that right, Cass?
Oh, absolutely. Between Bellator 180 and UFC Oklahoma, the weekend was legend. Wait for it. Bunch of sexy guests. Hashtag spicy guest. Dairy.
Ooh.
We have a bunch of sexy guests. And you know what? Something that was brought to my attention just before, they all happen to be past world champions. How about that? Kicking off the program is going to be none other than the Axe Murderer himself, Wanderlei Silva. No post-fight scrum at Bellator NYC, but we have him here on Submission Radio to talk about pretty much everything. So Wanderlei will be joining us back on the program after a very long absence from Submission Radio. We've missed our Axe Murderer, so he'll be on first. Then we've got Bas Rutten, former world champion number 2. Always love having Bas Rutten on the program. He'll be breaking down basically the weekend and all the fights, all the crazy things. Of course, there's a lot of other things to talk to Bas Rutten about, and it's always fun. Ryan Bader, another world champion, a fresh world champion. I said former. He is a current world champion, and he's going to be on the program to talk about his big win at Bellator 180 against Phil Davis. And then rounding off the program, before we get to our discussion segment, Johnny Hendricks. Nobody's heard from Johnny since UFC Oklahoma. He didn't have a great weekend, he missed weight, and he lost the fight, but there are a lot of things to speak to Johnny about in terms of his career, his future, is he retiring, what happened with the weight cut, and hopefully we'll get answers. So we have a lot of sexy guests, but wait, Dennis, there's more, isn't there?
Yeah, we've got a couple of guests later on in the program to talk about the crazy events from Bellator NYC and let us really know their thoughts on UFC OKC. And that is, of course, Dwayne Finley and Hunter A. Hummerstack, who were there on the ground with James Lynch doing great work covering the event. They've got a lot of stuff to talk about and really will give us an insight of what it was like over there at Madison Square Garden in New York covering the event. So we're excited to have them on the show. That's later on. We'll be breaking all of that down with them. So it's a big show and a lot to get to. Quickly before we jump to our first guest, I just want to remind you guys to jump on Twitter at SubmissionAUS and give us a follow. We love seeing your comments and your thoughts. You can always message us directly on Twitter. That's open to anybody. And also Facebook, facebook.com/SubmissionRadioAUS, another place where you guys can message us and give us your comments and thoughts on what's going on. And also, if you do enjoy the show, we say it every time, but we always mean it and we always love it. If you guys want to leave us a comment on iTunes, we love to check it out. If you enjoy the program, me and Kasper like to read them, and it always means a lot to us. But like Kasper mentioned, former champions, current champions, it's a huge show of Submission Radio. We have our first guest on the line, and Kasper, I believe you're about to introduce him.
Our next guest is a legend and an icon of the sport. His amazing career highlights have come in both Pride and the UFC, and this past weekend he competed in the main event of Bellator NYC. He is none other than the Axe Murderer himself, Wanderlei Silva, and he joins us straight from Brazil. Wanderlei, welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you today?
Very good. I want to say hello to all of my friends who can listen right now.
Yeah, and you have a lot of friends, Wanderlei. You know, you're loved all around the world. Let's talk about, Saturday night, because there was a big comeback for you. People haven't seen you fight for a really long time, and it was 4 years away from the cage for you. So tell us, what did it feel like when you were backstage in the Bellator dressing room preparing for the fight? And did anything feel different for you when you were getting your hands wrapped? What was the moment like for you before you walked out to fight again?
I feel incredible, because this time out before it be a very hard time for me, and my dream is back to fight. And in this night, I make my dream come true.
Right. You mentioned it was a hard time for you. What was it specifically that was hard about it, Wanderlei?
Yeah, because I stopped to fight, because I have some problems now with the old organization. But after I finished that problem, the biggest events in the world contact me and give me the opportunity to fight in a great card, in a great event. Just be one amazing night for me.
You spoke about how you had to go through all those problems. At any point while you were away from fighting, were you worried that you may never fight again, or were you worried about how much time it was taking to get through those problems and get to a point where you could fight again?
No, I think the solution gonna be just the time, and my old boss be a really good guy, because he may let me go, man, and just be a great attitude for him. And I have my problems with him, because when two lions be together, it's tough, because the lion's gonna fight. But I respect him a lot. He's a great promoter. He gave me the opportunity to fight in great events, and I'm so thankful for him.
That's good. That's fantastic. It's great to see that you and Dana White are on good terms. So then you get the official booking that you and Chael Sonnen are going to fight. What was it like in terms of the preparation for this fight, Vanderlei? You know, you were away for so long. What was it like getting back in the gym and preparing your body again to fight?
Yeah, just be a hard time for me. I learned a lot, because I train with a lot of young fighters, and I put the martial arts in my life again, and I'm so happy to back to training, to make the class like a regular student, and I learn a lot. I feel really good that they can back to fight.
Well, you say you learn a lot. What was the biggest thing that you learned? And was training different compared to when you were in Pride and the UFC? Did you have to completely change your training to how you trained back in the day in shoot box?
No, the training is hard like that, but I train more safely, because I can't have injury to that fight. This fight is so important, I'm gonna make it the main event. It's a lot of responsibility. And I'm so happy because the coach is doing a great class. I have a great partners, and I make a really good camp.
You've obviously fought in the biggest organizations in the world, Pride, UFC. Talk to us about what it felt like when you were making your entrance for Bellator in New York and fans were cheering for you. Did it kind of remind you a little bit of the Pride days when you were making your entrance?
Yeah, we a lot of emotion, because the arena is the biggest arena. Is the most famous arena in the world, and the arena is packed. Like, the guys make sold out, and I know a lot of millions and millions of people watching around the world, and I'm feel so happy to be part of this card, and be part of this day.
And obviously fans are looking forward to this event for such a long time, and seeing you and Chael get in the cage. It was, when you and Chael were looking at each other in the cage and the referee was in between you, it reminded us of your Pride stare downs. The fight didn't go your way, but what exactly was the game plan? How did you see yourself beating Chael when you stepped in the cage? What was the plan?
My plan is to catch him exactly when he gonna try to take me down. But my plan no working very well, because he's fast. He doing his game plan very well. I need to say he prepared himself very well to this fight, and that night be his night.
Obviously, people know the big rivalry you and Chael had all the way from the UFC down to Bellator. Did emotions play any part during your performance against Chael? Did you feel any emotion against him when you were fighting him, or was it just like any other fight for you?
No, this fight will be totally different, because I know he's a tough fighter, and I'm having a lot of revival, But this make me no make me no do nothing bad. No, this is I put that in the good way.
So during the fight, were you sort of able to use your emotions in a positive way? Did you feel anything during the fight?
Man, the truth, in the finish, I feel sad, mad, because I wanted to make a really good fight, not just to take the guy down, and hold. No, I like to make it like a battles. I like to make a great fights. And that night he played the game 2-1, and he won. But I like to fight different. No, I like to fight with more emotion.
Mm-mm. And you had some good moments in the fight where you did land on Chael and hurt him multiple times. What did you think when you saw that? And how close do you think you got to actually stopping him in those moments?
I feel so good because I have a great moments in my life, the best moments. And I like to prove myself. I like to test myself. And this night will be one more great test.
What was going through your mind when you saw he was hurt? I mean, after all the history between you two, after all the things that he said about Brazil, were you able to enjoy that moment during the fight when you saw him go down and you were punching him essentially?
It's true. I give it the knockdown on him, and I'm going to give it the punch. He take off his head away, so close. So when I hit that punch, gonna be the finish. And the truth, I feel good. I think the best moment in the fight be my moment. I'd be more closer to win the fight than him.
There was the moment at the end of the fight when you were walking out of the cage, you sort of pushed his shoulder a little bit, gave him a little bit of a shove. What were you thinking when you did that? What was going through your mind when you were sort of did that when Chael was doing his post-fight speech?
I wanted to make him 2 more rounds. I wanted to make the fighting back. I feel sad with me. I feel sad to my game plan not working. And, man, I just want to have the rematch. I'm going to train a lot, and I'm going to prove I can beat him.
So that's what you want now. You want the rematch with him next. Is that correct?
I don't know if it's going to be the next, but one day.
I mean, it was the first time that you fought in a really long time. Apart from the fact that your training went well, did it feel like you had a bit of cage rust when you went in there? Did you feel like those 4 years kind of gave you a bit of cage rust and you couldn't perform the same as you did before because of that time off?
The truth, I start to feel the fight. I make me like a little bit in trouble, but after the first round, I feel good, and I think in the next fight it's gonna be better.
Mm. Did you see Chael Sonnen afterwards backstage? Were you able to say anything to him?
No.
I'm wondering where does it stand with you and Chael now? Because this obviously you want the rematch, but you gave him a lot of credit just before. Did you gain any respect for him now that the two of you have shared the cage and fought together?
No, I think he needed all the respect because he won the fight. He won the fight on decision, on points, and 1-0. I need to try to make 1-1. Next I'm gonna win for sure.
Did you get a chance to speak to Scott Coker after your fight? And if so, what did you speak to him about?
No, I don't talk to him yet. And I'm gonna wait to check what's his plan for me.
We weren't able to see you at the post-fight press conference, Vanderlei. I'm just curious, why was that? Was it your choice, or did Bellator not want you to be near Chael?
No, this be my choice because after I lost, I don't have enough to say. Tonight be his night. I need to enjoy.
I want to ask you, Vanderlei, because another legend from Pride fought on the card, Fedor, had a fight with Matt Mitrione, and he ended up losing. Did you get a chance to watch Fedor's fight?
Yeah.
What was that like? Because we imagine watching his fight beforehand. Did it affect you at all, seeing him lose like that? Another legend from Pride like yourself?
No, this thing can happen with everybody. Jesus, punch in the face in the first 3 minutes can happen that for sure. It was an accident.
Chael Sonnen obviously called out Fedor as his next fight. Are you a fan of seeing Chael Sonnen fight Fedor next?
I think yes. I think it can be a great match.
If that fight did happen, if Chael Sonnen did fight Fedor, who do you think would win that fight?
I think he have a lot of chance. I think it can be a really good fight.
In terms of yourself, Vanderlei, what do you think is next for you? How soon do you want to come back and fight again? After this fight, it seemed like you mentioned you were sort of ready to fight again after the first round and you wanted another couple of rounds. Will you take another break, or do you think you'll come back to fighting again soon?
I think we're gonna back soon. I don't have any injuries, and I feel good. I feel happy. That is the best thing I have. And I wanted to make a good fights, classic fights. I wanted to make fights and everybody stopping to watch, to make the attention, to the new guys, and we to try to put the MMA on the top again.
I know you obviously you didn't win the fight, but would you say this is the happiest you've been in a long time because you're doing sort of what you love? Because you mentioned that on that night, in a lot of ways, your dreams came true.
Yeah, because I have a lot of battles, mental battles. I training a lot to this fight, and when I be in the cage, I feel great because I know this moment is gonna back. I know I can do it again, and this day I doing again.
Well, it's very exciting to hear, Vanderlei, and I'm sure fans around the world are very excited to hear that you're happy and you're in this great place in your life. There's a lot of great fighters in Bellator that you could possibly fight next. Are there any names that stand out to you? Is there anybody that you'd like to fight next that you've seen in the company that interests you in a fun fight?
I think we have a lot of good names. Bellator doing good to give the opportunity to everybody fight, to the biggest names fights, and I wanted to try to push the MMA to the top and make more fans and make MMA great again.
Do you have any interest in going for the title? I know Ryan Bader is the light heavyweight champion in Bellator. Do you have any interest in fighting for the title, or are you more interested in sort of big fun fights that fans can enjoy?
Now I am an artist. I make presentations of martial arts, and I wanted to make a big classics, big fights. No, I wanted to make a great fights, and I know. And when Bellator put one striker against me, I'm gonna make a great show.
For sure. And now that you've gotten a taste of getting back in the cage again, do you know how much longer you'd like to fight for again? Because it sounds like having this fight is sort of lit a fire under you again, Vanderlei. How much longer would you like to fight again for?
Now I make one fight each time, and I don't know. I'm gonna take the time and just to go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, he's back. He's fighting again. Vanderlei Silva. Do you have any messages for your fans, the fans that are watching right now? They might have seen you fight over the weekend, or they might be excited to see you back in the game. What's your message to your fans? What can they look out for in the future?
I think the guys can look into, because I'm going to try to make a great shows. I want to say thanks for everybody can give support for me on the social media, on my Instagram, my Facebook page, Vanderlei Silva, my Instagram, at OneFC. And, man, I feel good. I look at everybody stopping to watch the fight. Bellator told me the guys have the biggest night ever in the event. The numbers going very high. And I'm so happy to help to make the MMA great again.
Well, there he is, guys. Vanderlei Silva. He's officially back. His Twitter, don't forget to follow him at WandFC, and his Facebook, Vanderlei Silva Official. Vanderlei, we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us, especially so soon after the fight. It's great to see you back, and we wish you the very best. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the space, and I'm here anytime.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, our next guest is a friend of the program and an MMA icon. You can see him as Rutger in the awesome show Kevin Can Wait. Listen to him weekly on Rudin and Ronaldo. He is a UFC Hall of Famer, a previous heavyweight champion, a king of Pancrase, three-time king of Pancrase, and he joins us on the show today. A friend of the program, El Guapo, the handsome one, Bas Rutten. Welcome back to Submission Radio. This is like your unofficial second home, correct?
It really is, yes. It's, my second home. It is. And I feel great.
Well, it's good to have you back home, Bas. And I mean, thanks for joining us on the show. We know how busy you are. You're right now headed to your school to teach some classes, we believe. And we feel like we don't really get a chance to talk to you much about your teaching life. So tell us, how's your school going and how are the classes going? Because we imagine there's a lot of fun stuff happening at the Rutan MMA school.
It's always. I just came back from Black House. I was training for doing an interview here about Bruce Lee's new movie coming up.
Oh,
and
wow.
now I'm driving back home to teach my class at 6:00. And yeah, we have a bunch of guys. I think we have now 4 professional fighters, and I would say like 8 amateurs. But the focus is not on the fighters. The focus is more on the general people in our gym. But yes, of course we have fighters as well, and they're doing great.
That's awesome. Talk to us about this Bruce Lee movie. How did you get approached? And there's been a lot of Bruce Lee movies. There's been a lot of documentaries. There's one a few years ago, I remember. What exactly is this one all about?
This is kind of a cool story because I saw the trailer, and what they're doing is a guy is sleeping on Bruce Lee's gym doorstep, and so Bruce Lee tells him that he's going to have to train with him now because he's sleeping at his doorstep. So the guy starts training there, and he starts being intrigued into the whole world of Kung Fu, and he realizes that a Kung Fu master from China is coming over to actually to challenge Bruce Lee. And you really see the spirit of Bruce Lee, the way he's a very cocky guy, very confident, and which is also a legend because he says, what do you mean? I'm a legend. You see me every day. I says, no. I saw this other guy who was also a legend coming from China, and then this guy challenges him. And that's apparently in his story, it's a big fight because everybody wanted to see that fight, and now we're going to see how it all got together.
That's interesting. It's kind of like a different, fresh, new take. And I like it every time they release something about Bruce Lee because I feel like a lot of the younger people coming up, it's a good way to keep reminding them about who he is and what he's done so the legend and his awesome legacy sticks around. I'm just wondering, Bas, because obviously you've worked and coached with some of the biggest names in the world in MMA, a lot of legends. You've coached a lot of legends. We've seen some of the great work that you've done with a lot of fighters and Pride. Now that you sort of do a lot of analyst work and you sit back and you watch a lot of fights, do you ever kind of get an urge when you see someone perform to sort of get in contact with them and help them fill in some gaps that are sort of obvious to you when you watch the TV and give them a few sneaky tips or tricks or going up there and show them a couple of techniques?
I do. I have to say I did because some fighters don't appreciate constructive criticism, I guess. Because they looked at me, and then the next time when I saw him fight, he was doing exactly the same. But, I tell him, I say, listen, this is what I see, and this is the reason you're probably doing it. And I know I'm right with those reasons because I see it all the time. I say, and this is how you can fix it. Because you're kicking really hard. You're just focusing on the wrong part. Your power is too early in the kick, and you have to transfer it to later in the kick. And I have a great way of explaining that. But, I did it to the last 2 guys I did. They really didn't appreciate it, I think. So it was kind of weird. But then again, I worked with guys when I interview people, and they always after when I'm done interviewing, they say, hey, what you doing tonight? And these are the real guys. These are the champions of nowadays. And these guys do accept constructive criticism because they know that they want it. They're hungry for it. And so then I go, yeah, of course, I would train with them. Now, if they're facing a friend of mine, a guy that I know, I will train them, but I don't do any game planning. I say, okay, this is how you kick harder, this is how you punch harder, faster. I do all that stuff, and then, but I don't game plan. But yeah, I really enjoy doing it, but nowadays I let it come from them instead of me walking up to them and telling them, hey, you can make this better, because some of them don't appreciate that.
I mean, there's a bunch of funny stories, I'm sure, waiting to be told there. Who are some of the guys? Who's someone recently that maybe like a big name that you've spoken to, and somehow you ended up sharing some tips with them, and they were sort of able to take the constructive feedback and criticism?
Well, this has been a while ago. I was at Mike Winklejohn at the place at Jackson and Winklejohn, and I interviewed John Jones. And he was asking me immediately. He said, "Hey, what are you doing afterwards?
Wow.
Would you like to train me?" And it was fun because I started working with him, and I put the sound effects in his head. I have a way that I teach which makes you faster using sound effects, and it's really weird. But anyway, it worked, and he was really happy with it. And a week later, we had Greg Jackson on Inside MMA, and he walks in. I say, "Hey, Greg, what's up?" And he says, "Good, man." I said, "Well, what have you been teaching these crazy guys? Everybody's making these crazy sounds in the gym." I go, "Are they faster?" And he goes, "Yes." I said, "My work is done, dude." He did it. So it worked out perfectly, and apparently Jones transferred it also to the other students. So everybody started working with it.
Wow, that's crazy. And just to sort of give a bit of framing and paint the picture, when was this? Do you remember roughly when? I'd love to sort of know like what sort of timeline there is for this.
This was, I would say, about 2 years ago. So it's been a while. But
that's not that long. He was already a champion. This isn't like 7 years ago when he was starting.
Oh, yeah.
This is like that. It's pretty recent.
Yeah, it's pretty recent, but that's the guy he is. He's just an extreme athlete who always wants to learn and pick people's brains, and I think it's the smartest thing to do. I did this. I did it all the time. I was the worst, well, no, the best student, so to say, but the worst for some teachers because I was always asking, why are you doing like this? Even in karate, like an upper hand block, like somebody comes down with a knife and you have to make that high block that they all do in karate.
Yeah.
There is a way if you block with your left hand, your right hand has to be crossing in front of the left hand. Wow, that guy went fast. Has to be crossing in front of your hand, and then you have to make the block. So I asked my teacher, I say, hey, what is the reason that hand needs to be on the outside? And he couldn't give me the answer. So then I started, I started digging into it, and I realized, okay, the arm that you're going to block with needs to be protected because otherwise it might be stopped. So that's why the other hand is on the outside. But you see, I was always working little hand movements. Why you turn it like this? Why you pull it all the way high back and not low on your hip? And I asked these questions all the time. I wanted to know everything, every little detail about every technique. But I think that's what every champion should do because that's how you learn.
I absolutely agree with you. And I'm the same way. I'm not a fighter, but even if I do jiu-jitsu or I do boxing or anything like that, I'm always annoying all of my coaches with questions, and all the other people in the class are just staring at you and shaking their head. But that's what you got to do. That's how you learn, and I think all the good trainers appreciate that. Now, Bas, a crazy weekend in MMA has just transpired. A bunch of legends on the card, a lot of stuff happening, and we just want to quickly get your thoughts on some of those fights. The first card I want to quickly bring up with you is Bellator NYC, because apart from all the big fights, there was obviously Fedor's return. He was fighting for the first time in Bellator. It was a pretty wild fight where it looked like it was a double knockdown at the beginning, but eventually Matt Mitrione was able to recover and capitalize on a down Fedor. And then obviously it was pretty clear Fedor was out after that, and the fight was finished. A lot of fans finding it hard to watch Fedor lose another fight, especially with him taking some more damage to his head. What did you think of the way this fight played out?
It's one of those moments, right? Both simultaneously hit each other, both go down. I already thought before, I think Mitrione, from his 11 wins, he won 10 times by knockout. He's just a really natural puncher, and when he connects, it could be over. So I said before the fight, I didn't expect like this, but I said, you know what? I'm going to go with the wild card here. I'm going to go with Mitrione. I think he's going to stop him. Now, I just gambled that because we're talking about freaking Fedor, of course. But, it's one of those things that happen, and I think youth helped actually was on Mitrione's side. He recovered faster, and right away he went in for the kill. And I think this is the first time we saw Fedor out, like being out. I mean, his hands went all the way up. It was kind of like Matt Lindland against
Vito Belfort.
When he got knocked out, you saw his whole arms are coming up like the body is still fighting or doing something, but he was gone. So it was a great victory for Mitrione.
It's kind of crazy because, it was a double knockdown. It sort of could have gone either way. So in some senses, I mean, Fedor had his chance, but you mentioned a very important thing, and that is that youth was on his side. He's 40 years old now, Fedor. He's already had a huge legacy, a huge career. When you see him, get this kind of knockout and really be completely out, do you want to keep seeing Fedor fighting at this point, Bas?
Yeah, it's a hard question because if Fedor was behind it, and his last 5 fights, although against Maldonado, that was not a pretty fight either. They could have stopped that fight way before. If you're out there for the safety of the fighter, well, they should have stopped that fight, but they didn't. And then later on, he still won, so that was a good thing for him. But still, you don't want them to. You don't want them to see get hurt. Sorry, I'm cutting in here. That's right. You don't want them to see get hurt, and another good thing. And I think if it would happen again, every time when he goes to America, it's not going well for him. There's something about America with him. It's almost like superstitious here, because he cannot seem to pull off a victory here. Yes, he knocked out Brad Rogers and Arlovsky. He did that, but lately in his career, he's been struggling outside his country, and outside Japan.
And I mean, in terms of what's next for him, Sonnen looks like he wants to fight him next. It's an interesting matchup, but a lot of people will say it's probably not the most exciting matchup that you could really create. Are you interested in seeing Fedor fight Chael Sonnen next?
I don't know. I think that Fedor would win that one. I would think. Although Chael surprises me every time. And before this fight, I said, look what he did to Shogun. He got him in a submission. And now this fight, he fought a perfect game plan. I mean, he even threw out a flying knee. It wasn't the smartest thing and fastest thing, but, he got him on the ground, got inside his head, and he just played his game. I think that Fedor is a much better grappler than his opponent was. So I think Fedor will be a harder fight, and Fedor might stop the takedown. And if he can stop the takedown, well, we're still talking about Fedor. This guy has got some power in his hands, and if he can deliver a shot, it could be over for Chael. But, he's been surprising us lately, Chael does. So it's a miss win like that, but he comes off a big victory right now.
It's interesting because for a long time, people like ourselves have been sort of wanting to see Fedor use his sambo again, and that's probably a fight where he'd have to use his sambo, he'd have to use his grappling against Chael Sonnen because he'd be forced into those clinch situations. But you mentioned Sonnen, you mentioned that Vanderlei fight. What did you think of that fight? And, specifically, obviously, Vanderlei, you were there for his prime in Pride when, he had that crazy win streak and he ruled Pride middleweight division. What did you think of the Vanderlei that, we all saw Bellator NYC, which looked quite noticeably very different physically to the one that we saw in his last fight against Brian Stann in UFC in Japan?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not as pretty anymore as it was. You can tell age is catching up. You can see he's slower. The reflexes are not there like they used to be. And I think as a fighter, you don't want to be remembered like that. I think, he was such a powerful fighter. You want to remember him like that. And then if you see him in a fight like this, well, unfortunately, people always say, you're only as good as your last few fights, and because that's going to stick in the minds of the people. And now he's tarnishing what he had before. So, yeah, I would like it better if these guys would simply stop. For me, it was injuries did the trick for me. If I truly believe that if I would not have any injuries, I would have kept fighting as well, because it's a very hard thing to let go. But once you see yourself back and you see yourself on video, you're slower. It's not as explosive anymore. And now it can be dangerous against new fighters who are super explosive, who started training when they maybe were 10 years old. It's a scary thing. I would say just stop it and focusing on teaching.
And we don't want to point any fingers or anything like that, but obviously there's some history of PED use and some of the old school fighters, and we know now everybody is clean. But, from what you understand, a fighter that, does sort of use PEDs throughout their career and now sort of fighting at older ages. We know Chael Sonnen, he got in trouble over it in the UFC, but how difficult would it be for their body at their age also without, those PEDs that have helped them, at certain points of their career? How hard would it be for them, to really sort of perform the way that we used to remember them in their prime?
It is very hard. Recouping is also injuries. And pretty much every fighter, when they fight, they have an injury. But if you're an older fighter, those injuries will be worse because they simply don't go away. You also have to really schedule the way you're training. In the early days, I could go 4 times a week, completely nuts. 100%, go 100%. And I mean 100%. It's not 99 when I say that. But you cannot do it more than 4 times. And this was when I was 30 years old. You cannot do it more than 4 times because you're going to burn out. Now, if you get older, those 4 sessions are going to be 2 sessions maybe. You really have to make sure that you don't overtrain, because once you overtrain, you can't come back from that. You know, it took me 3 months to come back one time in my fighting career. I had 4% body fat because me, the idiot, thought the more I trained, the better I got. Nobody ever told me that you needed to put good food in yourself and that you actually need rest in order for your muscles to regain their strength and build back and come back stronger. So I just worked out 2 times a day, every day, for like 6 months. And of course, yeah, suddenly I just passed out. While I was training, somebody found me in my gym, and I woke up. I go, wow, that is weird. But, you know, I was done for 3 months. I was teaching 3 classes a week, and then for the rest I was in bed and I was eating. So that's how hard it hit me. So, and if you get older, that's worse. So you really have to watch out.
Wow, 4% body fat. That's insane. Much respect to you, boss. Now, while we're talking about all these legends, I mean, it was like Legends Weekend. Another legend who fought, obviously, was BJ Penn. He took on Dennis Siver at UFC Oklahoma. Is another fight that was pretty hard for fans, old school fans like us to watch. And, you know, even though BJ looked like, you know, he did have a glimmer of hope after knocking Dennis Siver down, he didn't have that same urgency or that seemingly that passion of being in the octagon that he once used to. He didn't have that killer instinct. It's crazy because Dennis Siver, back in the day when BJ was ruling the division, he would have been a severe underdog. What did you think about BJ's performance in this fight?
You know, I love BJ, always love BJ, but I don't want to see him fight like this. I simply don't. Also, in his last fight, you know, he doesn't look good. You know, he needs to understand that, you know, the days are gone. You know, like I said before, for me, injuries took care of the problem. Because otherwise I would have probably been in the same boat. I would have tried to keep on going because it's something that's so cool, the working out. You know, I miss it. All the stuff I have to do now. In the early days, I just had to wake up, train really hard, go eat, relax, boom, boom, train another time really hard, sometimes maybe a third session, and that was it. You know, but it was the best life because you had all your friends there with you. You know, everybody's cracking jokes. We're having a great time. When it's time for training, we train really hard. You know, it's a hard thing to let go. But, you know, unfortunately, when you look at yourself back like that, I wouldn't have liked to see myself fight like that. You know, if I would see that, I would say, you know, I'm not the guy that I used to be. So it's time to stop.
The crazy thing is that, like, you and BJ were obviously inducted into the Hall of Fame the very same year. That was in 2015. And obviously your career paths have gone very separate ways. But we're seeing these guys like Fedor, these guys like BJ, and they sort of seem like they're struggling a little bit with not really knowing what to do with themselves after their best years. Do you think that's kind of a part of it, where they've done this for so long, and, you know, once they're in retirement, a guy like a Fedor, a guy like BJ, they're bored. They don't have anything else to do. It's such a sort of shock to their system. Do you think that's maybe part of it?
Yeah, that could be very well. You know, but like I said, once you get hooked, like the worst thing it's the worst thing, but it's the best thing also. If you fight a very first fight and you knock somebody out, that's it. You're done. You're hooked. You know, that's literally, you cannot let it go anymore because it's a feeling that you cannot pretty much get anywhere else. You know, you can stop somebody with a move that you worked for like the last 10 weeks. Maybe you submit him or you knock him out, but it's a combination that you worked really hard for, and then to see it pay off, you know, and then by way of knockout and the people go nuts, it's an addiction. It's a very hard thing for a fighter to let go. That's why you see a lot of fighters also when they stop fighting. You know, some guys, like I had an alcohol problem. You start looking for these vices because you can't get it from fighting anymore. You try to get it somewhere else. You know, and alcohol. Oh, okay, you know, I got high, I got drunk. You know, you start doing these stupid things. And thankfully, you know, I always see myself on the outside. I always step away from situations. When I'm in a fight with a person, I step away from in my mind, I step away from it and I look at it from a distance and say, who's right here? You know, and then I look, okay, you know what? Actually, he could be right. Maybe I should slow down on this guy, take it easy on the guy, you know. But once you step back and you see yourself train and you see yourself fight, just videotape yourself. I had some fights, I don't want to name names, who said, okay, I'm going to come back in kickboxing, and then you see him on the Thai pads, and they actually think it's that they did well on the Thai pads, but when you see their workout, you go like, dude, you shouldn't be fighting. This is not you. If I looked at you 10 years ago doing the Thai pads, it's a big difference. I mean, you're 20% slower now, and 20% in this game, well, it can get you killed. It can get you really hurt. So, you know, it's just saying, I got to stop. And if you didn't have a backup plan, yeah, you're going to have a problem. Now, what are you going to do? And by the way, to come back over that super high that you get from a victory, there are other guys out there, like a Pat Miletich, for instance. He does these crazy things. He's 100 kilometers, 100 miles.
Yeah.
He jogs 100 miles, or he chases tornadoes. That's the way he still gets the high. He knew that he had to replace it with something else that is really impressive in order to not slip into maybe drugs or alcohol, So that he was very smart about that. He just picked something that he really enjoyed doing that will get the heart rate up, and that replaces the fighting.
Mm-hmm. And it almost feels like the UFC retreat. The majority of the seminars should be about what you do next after your career, but that's just going off topic. Before we talk about the CBD oil bass that's been taken over the MMA world, we want to just quickly touch on one last thing with you, and that is that McGregor-Mayweather fight that is now made official. It didn't look like it was going to happen for a while, but now it's going to be happening on August 26th. So we have to ask you, what was your reaction to the fight actually coming together and being made so soon?
I took it by surprise because I thought it was never going to happen. I thought it was just, just a thing, I guess, right? I thought it would never happen, but I guess that Mayweather realized, wait a minute, we can make a crap load of money here, And for McGregor already won. If he's going to pocket $60-80 million, I mean, he cannot lose. Even if he loses against the best, pretty much boxer on the planet. And he steps out of his comfort zone. It's not even mixed martial arts or kickboxing. He fights him at his rules. So there's no losing for McGregor. There's a lot of pressure on Mayweather. He wants to have that 50-0. Every person that he walks, that he sees on the street or his team, they will all tell him how easy this fight is going to be. And as a fighter, you do not want to hear that because now you better win. It's almost, and I explained this also in another interview, it's like fighting a girl. You cannot lose because if you lose to a girl. But if you win, well, you were supposed to win. You see what I mean? So there's a no-lose situation for McGregor. If he connects with his left hand, because he does have power in his left, he might knock him out. But that chance is very, very slim against the best defensive boxer on the planet.
What are you looking forward to more, Bas? The fight itself or the pre-fight festivities and the trash talk? Because you know it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, the trash talk, I'm looking forward to that. I want to see how McGregor is going to try to get inside the head of Mayweather. And Mayweather is a great trash talker as well. So I think we're going to see some fireworks. I think a lot of people, I threw a number out there that people thought I was crazy. I think 5.5 million pay-per-view buys are going to be, I believe 4,800 was against Pac-Man. So Pacquiao. So I truly believe that this can actually top it because of the way they're going to build it. Everybody's going to be tuned in. McGregor is going to be McGregor, like he always is. Mayweather is going to be him. It's going to make for a spectacle. This is American TV. That's what this is.
I mean, you mentioned the pressure that's on Floyd and how really McGregor has not that much to lose in this fight. And he's already, going to get a huge paycheck. So he's pretty much already won just by this fight coming together. But for everybody listening out there that's trying to figure out, okay, how would McGregor do this? I mean, there's a lot of theories floating around. One, McGregor goes out there, he starts coming forward towards Mayweather, tries to knock him out early. Another theory is McGregor tries to play mind games with Floyd at the start of the fight, save his energy and try and put him away a little bit later. A lot of people believe Mayweather is going to drag this out a little bit, use a lot of his defensive boxing, and then eventually finish McGregor sort of later on in the fight. How do you see McGregor's path to victory here? In your mind, what is the most likely way he can do it?
Don't attack. Let Mayweather come to him. Mayweather's really good defensive and countering. Let Mayweather come to McGregor. That's what I would do. Once he comes in, it's just what happens with Aldo. We never expected Aldo's striking skills are phenomenal and unbelievable. I never expected this, but what he did, he got angry because McGregor was making fun of him, and that's why he bull rushed in, and boom, he landed that big punch. Now, hopefully, he can do the same thing with Mayweather, but Mayweather, the guy is just a really good boxer. So I don't even know if he can get inside his head because he's such an athlete, but if he does get inside his head, you saw with Ronda Rousey what happened with Holm. And actually, if you think about it, it happened exactly the same to McGregor and Nate Diaz. Because once they had their first fight, I remember they were at, I believe it was a press conference at the weigh-in, that suddenly McGregor hit Diaz's hand. He lost his cool, and that meant that Diaz got inside his head, and then he lost the fight. And it was fun because when the first time it happened with Holm and Rousey, I had a person standing behind me. We were looking at the way that Rousey was losing her cool, and my buddy goes right away, she's going to lose, dude. We got to put money on Holm. She's going to lose. So then she lost. And then when it happened with Mayweather, with McGregor and Diaz, the same guys behind me said, dude, he's going to lose. McGregor's going to lose. And he did lose. You see, so it's all about the mind games. If you can really get inside the head of your opponent, get him angry, let him come out firing, and because he's angry, he's loading up his punches instead of throwing it just from where they are, yeah, then Mayweather could get knocked out. But again, we're talking about Mayweather, so he's not a really nice human being, but I have to admit that this guy is a phenomenal athlete.
He is. He is. He's one of the best, and it's going to be interesting. I'm personally looking forward to the actual festivities more than the fight, but the whole circus is going to be fun. Bas, we'll let you go in just a moment, but before we do, we have to get an update from you on the Receptra Bas CBD oil. We spoke about it a little bit last time, but CBD oil is really blowing up now. It's becoming the new in thing at the moment. Tell us a little bit about more in terms of updates. Are you using it at the moment, and any interesting stories that have come from it recently?
Yes, I'm using it. I'm going to send it to my mom. She has early stages of Parkinson's now. So, once she started shaking, I'm going to send her as well because it will help with that. It does so much good for, for CTE, for when fighters get hit. I was at the CBD summit, and there was a doctor who never believed in CBD, and he came on stage, and they asked him to test certain strains of CBD, and he goes, it's insane what it's doing. He said, I didn't believe in it, but after the test we saw, like Kuping, if two people got hit really hard, if they gave one person, they gave CBD oil right away, the next day it will be 80% less than the other person. He says 80%. He said, that's a big number. It's insane what it does. So you can only imagine, if they keep on going and know when to administrate it, maybe right away after the knockout, not like 2 hours later, but immediately. I think once all these tests are starting to come out, I think people are going to be amazed. And, it's, like I said last time, Israel has been doing this for a long time. That's how I got into it in the first place. I saw this 3-part documentary, like a 2-hour, like 6 hours in total about the CBD, what they were doing in Israel, and claiming that it already cured certain cancers. And like skin cancer. Wow. If you have skin cancer, you rub CBD oil on it, that's it. It will kill the skin cancer. Mauro and I, we had on our podcast a friend from Mauro, stage 4 stomach cancer. His whole family, a lot of people had cancer, passed away. He saw everybody go through chemotherapy, and he said, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use cannabinoids, and I'm going to use CBD. He did that together with a high alkaline diet, so a lot of greens and vegetables, completely cured it without radiation. You see, wow. And without chemo. So I go, man, this is crazy, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think once everything starts coming out, it's been such a bad product. It's the government. The government just said it's a drug. It's not a drug. It's something that helps you. Even the Catholic Church says, no, use the plant. It's there for a reason. You have to use it to help people. So I hope that the stigma is going to be away. We need a lot of education for the people because they hear CBD. They say, oh, it's from a cannabinoid. Just like THC, you get high. They don't even do the research, unfortunately. But once it's going to be in their faces with all the research that they have right now, people are going to be really amazed. I think they're going to cure a lot of diseases with it.
I mean, that's an amazing endorsement right there. And I think the biggest thing that stood out right there is the fact that you mentioned CTE and in terms of people who have concussions. I think a lot of fighters out there can benefit. And I'd be surprised if you haven't already sort of done your due diligence and sort of spoken to a lot of fighters about it already, because obviously you know a lot of them. And if you guys want anyone listening right now who wants to try it out, it is Receptra Bas CBD oil. You can check it out at bascbd.com, bascbd.com. Nice and simple. simple, and you can unlock your morning routine and listen to the amazing Rudan and Ranello podcast while you're taking that as well. And of course, don't forget to follow Bas on Twitter at BasRudanMMA. Bas, we've had a lot of fun. We always feel like we can talk to you for hours and hours. There's always a lot of things that we never get to ask you, but I'm sure we'll catch up pretty soon and ask you a lot of those things. We know you got a class to teach in just a moment, so we really appreciate your time, and thank you so much as always.
You're very welcome, guys. I'm always having a great time with you, so my pleasure.
Hey, this is Ariel Helwani, and you're listening to Submission Radio with my two favorite mates, Dennis and Casper.
All right, guys. Our next guest is the newly crowned Bellator light heavyweight champion. That's right, fresh off his victory this past weekend in Bellator 180. He joins us here on the program. He is, of course, Ryan Darth Bader. Ryan, it's good to have you on the show. How's it going today?
It's going well. What about you guys?
Doing great. We're always happy when you come on the show, and I mean, what a treat you coming on the program so soon after the fight. What have the last few days been like for you since Bellator 180?
Yeah, it's been fun. I had a lot of friends and family out to New York. Finally got an opportunity to fight for the title. So probably 30 or so people.
Wow.
People came out, and then after fighting in Madison Square Garden, I was done kind of early and walked over to the hotel from the arena. I was right across the street and celebrated with the friends and family a little bit, and then did the same on Sunday. And then I was still in New York. We got back late last night, so just had a ton of fun. And then now really just got back, saw the kids and that kind of stuff. So just kind of soaking it all in.
I mean, you talked to us about the fact that you had a whole bunch of friends and family flying down, but when you had that fight change, you were happy how you were still on the card. What's that like? I mean, if you have all these people flying down to New York, which we all know is a pretty pricey place, and they're all coming out to see you, is there some added pressure there to sort of cap it off and win that fight? And what was that feeling like when you did win it and they're all there to celebrate with you?
I wouldn't say it's added pressure, but, you always want to you want to win so bad regardless, but it just makes it that much sweeter, and if you looked at some of my Instagram, we went to a crazy brunch on Sunday that turned into a crazy club by 4 p.m. and we had 30 people there having fun, so if I would have lost, it wouldn't have enjoyed it as much, but it's cool to see everybody so happy afterwards and that genuinely care for you, want the best for you. So it was just a great experience, and I'm lucky enough to be able to do this and have people come out and and it's an excuse to come out to New York City and watch the fight and have fun together afterwards. But I wouldn't say there's much pressure. I don't see any of them really. I only see my wife for like an hour before the fight, and she kind of knows that we're in a different mindset, and I'll have fun with them after, but it's all business beforehand.
I mean, we know you're an Arizona man, and you guys do all those cool things, all these outdoorsy things, and in New York, what's it like for you and your crew? You guys enjoy it there? Did you do anything New Yorky, anything touristy? List some things down that you guys got up to.
They did. Beforehand, I wasn't doing much. I was getting my training in, making, fighting with places that were healthy to eat at and whatnot. I've been in New York a couple times, so I've done like the 9/11 museum. I've done all the touristy stuff. So for all the friends and family, kind of hit a bunch of that, and then we walked around a little bit on Monday and whatnot. But we just kind of had fun, enjoyed each other's company and stuff like that. So I do like to try to do a few touristy things, wherever I'm at. I usually stay a couple of days after, whether it's Australia, Japan, New York, basically to have fun with friends and family, because I've been cooped up and one-track mind for so long. So it was a good time.
Very nice, very nice. And speaking of that one-track mind, let's talk about the big night. You've obviously been in big fights before on big stages, but on the night itself, did it feel different considering that you were fighting for the belt and you finally had that shot at becoming champion? Was there a difference when you were getting your hand wrapped and before you actually made the walk?
Yes and no. I mean, I could tell like the magnitude of it. It felt bigger, and I wanted to go out there and this was my shot, so I wanted to walk in the back with the belt around my waist. That and the fact that I've only been to one other Bellator event, and went and watched it when it was in Chicago, and I'd never stepped foot in the Bellator cage. I didn't even know what the canvas felt like, or how big the cage was, or anything like that until I stepped foot a couple of minutes right before we were about to fight. So all that kind of stuff was a little different, and I had to kind of take it all in and process it very quickly, because I didn't know what surface the cage was, and it doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you've never been in there, you don't know what your footing's going to be like. You don't know this, if you're going to be throwing kicks or you're going to be slipping and whatnot. So I got in there before Phil Davis, obviously, because he was a champion, and I just kind of was processing all that while I was going in. I never walked out before Bellator or any of that kind of stuff. So I had to not only do all that and process that, but I was doing it and fighting for a world championship a couple of minutes later.
And I mean, you mentioned that. That's crazy to me. I would have thought they would have had you do that maybe a day before the fight, or took you out to the cage to check it out.
Yeah, we tried, but it's just not, the cage is not set up yet, because they have other events and whatnot in the arena. And then we get there, and the fight's already started by the time, we got there. And we asked if they had a little intermission, whatever, we can try to go at least feel the canvas or see what it was like in that cage, but they didn't have any time, So it was just one of those things where, for me to after all that, to walk out with the belt against a tough dude in Phil Davis, I got it done. The fight itself, Phil and I we match up. I guess it would be well with each other, or not, not well for the fans. That matchup of two top 3 guys in the world, and Phil has 4 losses and 2 over me. One was from Rashad way back in the day, and then one was Anthony Johnson. So you make a mistake with that guy, and he wins the fight. And so hopefully I don't have to see him, in quite some time. But my point is that I went in there, got the job done on an unfamiliar place, So now that I have my feet wet, it's going to be a lot better, and it'll be a lot. I just got to know what's going on now. I know the process.
And you're the champion now, so when you tell them to let you in the damn cage to try it out the day before, they better do it, damn it, or people are going to be fighting. Right. I'm a bit of a nerd, Ryan, so I'm just curious, while we're on that topic of what it felt like, how different did it feel to the UFC octagon, and how different did it feel doing that walkout in Bellator? And did you like it? Was it a better feeling?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot. And it was weird too, because whether it was new or unfamiliar, because you walk out in UFC, I've done it so many times that I, like, even the little smells and whatnot, like the smell of the canvas and all that, they're kind of like triggers of back in the day when I used to get like almost freaked out before fights, when kind of all new fighters do when you're fighting on the big stage, So it'd always be like some nervousness when you smell these different smells, And with this fight, I was walking out and I just felt like, man, I belong here. I felt good. The energy was good. I got in that cage and I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be a lot slippery. Perfect. I like this feel. I actually prefer this feel of this cage. It's a smaller cage also. And that, I guess, really didn't matter to me. But I when I was sitting there and the fight started, I was like, I feel at peace with everything. I feel excited and just ready to kind of do it. So it was a super cool experience. It was going in to the whole fight week, it was kind of routine. It felt routine, because we were doing a lot of the same stuff, and it was as big, if not bigger, like media day and whatnot, as the last couple of fights in the UFC I've been to, because I've been on fight nights and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. And that's crazy, the way you sort of painted that picture and described it with all the smells and stuff like that. I can totally understand what you're saying there. But it's crazy. Here you are talking to us as the new Bellator champion. But for a second there, it kind of seemed like it could go either way. It was a very tense moment when the scores were being read out, and we could see the expression on your face. I'm just wondering, what was going through your mind at the moment?
It just sucks to leave it up to the judges like that. Obviously, if I could go in there and finish a dude and knock him out, it's awesome. But if you look at who I was fighting, that's what I was kind of telling the media afterwards. It was like, when has Phil Davis been beat, first off? Mm-hmm. He's been beat 2 other times in his whole career besides me. I beat him twice. And then how does he win? The fighters make one single mistake, and he capitalizes on that and wins the fight. And then when has he ever been finished? Never. And so it's just one of those fights where he's a tough dude. Went in there and tried to be smart about it. Obviously, I'm trying to win this fight. It's for a belt here. If it was just another fight, not for really anything, then I guess we can just go in there and rock 'em, sock 'em, and just throw caution to the wind. But we're fighting for something huge here, and so you have to stick to your game plan. You have to be a technician in there, and so it was just one of those fights at the end. I just sat there and I was like, I thought I won, and two judges confirmed that I won every round except one, and then the other saw it differently and thought he won one more round than I did. And so I was sitting there and it's like, I don't know, it's a close fight. I got the last one. Who knows? You might get this one, but when they were reading it out, I was just sitting there, I was like, come on, just give it to me. I don't want to wait anymore. Then they said, and knew it was a great feeling. It was a great relief, knowing that I put in all this hard work and I have this thought. I choose this, but it's something I've wanted to achieve forever, but and then enjoy it a little bit, but then next time I'm going to look even better, and I feel like I'm in the right place, so it was a fun night.
And how fulfilled is your career now that you're a world champion? Because I imagine, you're taking this big risk, you're switching over to Bellator, you've got this big fight, but it must have been a little bit of pressure off your shoulders when you finally got that belt and became the champion. I mean, was that a point for you where you kind of got a bit of relief, and also the fact that you kind of made the right decision and it's sort of paid off for you?
Oh, 100%. And you can ask any fighter, that's the best feeling in the world is the relief after a win like that, because you look back and you put in on all the hard work in the camps, and you're going through different things during, every camp you're going through a little something. It doesn't matter if it's a little injury or doing this or whatnot. And it's just one of those things where you look back and like, all right, everything was worth it. Such a relief that I went in here and got it done, and had a great camp, and it felt good in the fight. And like you said, friends and family there, although I don't, and they wouldn't care either way, but it's still nice to win a world championship in Madison Square Garden and have your friends and family witness that. That's something I'll remember forever, and something they will also. And so it's just kind of accumulation of everything. It's just a huge weight lifted off your shoulders, and the best feeling in the world is when you walk back, you're done fighting, and you just get to sit down and soak it in and enjoy it a little bit.
Absolutely. And obviously this is something that you've been chasing for so long. And, obviously you have no plans of slowing down anytime soon, but do you feel like this is kind of like not final, but, kind of like the last goal that you needed to complete in your career that, when you started, you wanted to reach the highest heights and be the champion. It didn't happen in the UFC. You didn't get that opportunity, but now that you've done it in Bellator, it's kind of like, it doesn't really matter. Not that it doesn't matter what happens in your career, but no matter what happens in the future, you'll always be able to say that you achieved that goal. You were the world champion.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And that was kind of, coming in here, that was part of the relief. Just if I never win a fight again, I get to say, I was a world champion, and that's what was something that I've always wanted. But, the competitor in me and everything is like, now that I have it, it's on to the next one. I'm thinking like, what's next? Now it's to hold defend the title, and then it's all right. I'm going to win, defend the title on my, every fight on my contract, and so, but yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, and yeah, that's where a lot of the relief comes from. And I feel like I went in there and took out the top guy by far. I feel like there's not another guy out there who's better than Phil Davis in that division.
I want to talk to you about what's going to happen next and who we're looking at. But before I do, I just want to ask you, did you get a chance to watch the rest of the card? Was there a little champion seat somewhere up the front where they said, here you go, sir, this is where you sit now?
Hey,
did you get a chance to watch the rest of the action?
Actually, no, because I went in the back, and then they asked if I wanted to get my media scrum done, and then I was free to go and do whatever. And I said, yeah, let's get it done, because otherwise I'd have to wait till 1 a.m. And it was around 10 o'clock then when I was done. So I said, let's get it done. So I did a bunch of pictures in the back and my media stuff, probably, drug testing probably was like an hour and a half. And then I didn't even take a shower. I grabbed the belt and my bags, and me and the team walked from Madison Square Garden across the street back to our hotel. And like I said, met up with the family and friends and showered in the hotel room and kind of celebrated a little bit with them, and just kind of heard about the fights because I was interested in some of the fights, how they were going. So I saw the highlights, but I didn't get to watch the rest of the card.
Wow. Which ones were you most interested in, and what ones sort of stood out to you? I have to mention, obviously, Fedor Mitrione. That was a pretty crazy one.
Yeah, I know Mitrione and Michael Chandler are friends of mine, so I was definitely interested in their fights. And then, Mitrione's a favorite fight. I saw the highlights are saying, it was like a double knockout, then he got up and knocked him out again, so I lifted up. It was nuts, So I saw them all kind of like the highlights. And then Michael Chandler just had a freak deal, got kicked in this nerve where it shut his leg down, and so he's always game and is tough as hell, but, like he was saying, he goes, it better be broken, and then afterwards he's like, I'll take the nerve thing.
Did you get a chance to see any highlights from the main event between Chael and Vanderlei?
Not really. I saw a couple one of Vanderlei trying to get him a little bit and Chael taking him down.
Because, it was one of those fights where Chael came out and was able to use his wrestling to basically beat Vanderlei, but Vanderlei had a couple of moments there where he had a little bit of success. He was able to knock Chael down, and it kind of looked like the fight was going to possibly finish at those times. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because after his fight, Chael called out Fedor, and he wants to fight Fedor. Next, basically, he said that's the fight people want to see, and it's maybe the time to do it now. But like you mentioned, that double knockdown and Mitrione, knocking Fedor unconscious, it was clear that he was out of it at the end of that fight. People are sort of wondering if maybe it's time for Fedor to move on. A lot of fans are, finding it really difficult to see Fedor take these hits at this point in his career. Where are you at with this whole Fedor thing? Because at one point, that was the big fight, Ryan Bader versus Fedor. But after seeing him lose like that, are you still as interested in seeing him fight again or possibly fighting him yourself?
There's always interest there, because he's one of the best of all times, and I don't know where he's at, people don't like to see a guy of, his caliber and one of the best of all time, start to lose, They don't want him to kind of tarnish his legacy and whatnot, but I just kind of feel that's up to him, I don't know how much damage he's taken in his fight career. And Matt Mitrione is one of the best heavyweights on the planet, so it's not like he got knocked out by, some nobody, Mitrione can do that to anybody at any given time, and so I just kind of think it kind of goes to him. But I don't like to see people kind of, tail off and when they have so much success before, it's sad to see, but, it comes down to if he wants to keep doing it, him and his family have to make that decision.
Yeah, and I think it's just tough for fans as well because this weekend lots of veterans, BJ Penn as well in the UFC Cup. But with that Chael Sonnen Fedor fight, would you be a fan of seeing Chael Sonnen fight Fedor? Because these are two sort of big names that could possibly be your potential next fight. Would you want to see Chael Sonnen fight Fedor? Do you have any interest in fighting Chael Sonnen and defending your belt against him? Where are you at with that?
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure. I'm open, and then I was kind of telling this after my last fight too, and it's out there. I don't know what Bellator is kind of thinking, with these title fights. I don't know their process really, and for that matter, the UFC's either. It kind of used to be, all right, this guy is in line for a title because he won this amount of fights and blah blah blah. But now it's both organizations are kind of looking at the bigger fight. What's the big fight to make right here? So does Sonnen deserve a title shot after on a one-fight win streak? Maybe, because it's a big fight, and yeah, I would like to fight him. He brings a good amount of eyeballs, and I think it'd be a fun one for the fans too, and so I think we match up well, for the fans' sake, unlike a Davis kind of fight, but. I'm totally open. So so for me, it's do we fight one of these young and up and comers that are making waves, like a Linton Vassell-ish, or but I never really heard of him until he started tweeting at me when I was signing with Bellator. Or do you fight a guy that's been around, is known, and a guy like Sonnen?
And I mean, I guess the big question is, how's the body feeling? Because when we're looking at a time frame of you coming back and fighting again, is there a certain time period where you're thinking, all right, Ryan Bader's going to be making his first title defense here? Is there a certain time that you want to be returning? Because we know you've got the family, you've got the kids. You probably want to take a little bit of time to spend time with them as well.
Yeah, but I'm sore and whatnot, but there's nothing where that'll all be done in a week and a half, and so I'm looking to fight, as soon as Bellator wants me to get back in there, and it's one of those things where, I'm going to get at least 3 fights a year, and so I want to be an active champion, and I want to fight a lot. So it really doesn't matter. If I'm looking at it right now, and giving you a date, even September, October-ish sounds good, but who knows? That's where I have literally no clue what Bellator is thinking right now. Even going back to would you fight Chael Sonnen or whatnot? I don't know where their heads are at.
All right, well, there we go, Ryan. We really appreciate you chatting with us today. Very happy for you. A world title in the picture now for you, in the household. As we let you go, just curious, where are you going to keep that world title? Is there a special mantle, a special shrine that you've had prepared for a while now? Or are you, we spoke to Conor McGregor's coach a couple of months ago, and apparently Conor keeps his belt just on the floor in a room that never even gets visited. Are you one of those guys just playing it off cool like that?
Yeah, I'm not one to, just bring it everywhere and whatnot. So it'll just go I have an office here at the house. We'll just go on a shelf with some other wrestling stuff that I have, and it'll just be up there. The kids have been playing with it and whatnot. And it's kind of one of those things where, it's fun for a little bit. People took pictures of it, and my friends and family and whatnot. But now it feels like it's all right. Let's go on to the next one. Let's move on, and and that's it. So they'll just go kind of on a little shelf, basically.
I love it. There's a new light heavyweight champion in the house, depending on which one of your kids is playing with it. But Ryan, we really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Once again, congratulations on the big win. We look forward to seeing what's next with you. Appreciate you sharing your story with us so soon after the fight. Don't forget to follow Ryan on Twitter and Instagram at Ryan Bader. A lot of crazy stuff there. We still remember that time you sent us the photos of that buggy exploding in the desert. So there's a lot of good stuff to check out on Ryan's Instagram, and of course that brunch that turned to a club. So again, we'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your night, Ryan. Congratulations and thanks again.
All right, thanks guys. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, this is Brian Stan. You're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest is a former UFC welterweight champion who just recently fought at this past weekend's UFC Oklahoma card against Tim Boetsch. Things didn't go according to plan, but he is kind enough to give us some of his time and join us to discuss everything. He is the big rig, Johnny Hendricks. Johnny, welcome back to the program. How's it all going? It seems pretty crazy right now where you are.
Yeah, it is. I'm dealing with all my kids. Just relaxing. It didn't go the way that I wanted to, but it sort of did. The fight, I felt like I was pressuring him good. I just had a mental lapse, and you sort of can't do that whenever you're in there, definitely whenever you're moving up a weight class.
So talk to us about this mental lapse. We saw you on the fight. There's obviously a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack, but how exactly did this mental lapse come about, and what do you think went wrong in this fight against Tim Boetsch? Did you feel like you were having some kind of success? What was going your way, Johnny?
I felt like I was moving forward. That second round, I really felt like I got his timing down. Mm-hmm. But it really started time before that. Because Wednesday. Wednesday something happened, and I started running a fever. Thursday, Friday, I'm just trying to, I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh. And, as crazy as, it's funny because I like, I love fans, but then again, I think they're the most ill-informed people, and the reason why I say that is because, perfect example, if y'all are feeling sick, what do y'all do? If you are sick, what do you get to do? You get to sort of take a day off, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Where, it sucks that, because my family was going through sickness for like 3 weeks prior to the fight. And I left, and I was like, I didn't get it. I was super excited. I was like, awesome. Nothing's going on. And but as soon as you started cutting weight, because I showed up, I think I was 13 over when I showed up. And I drank 10 pounds of fluids that day. And the next thing you're at that point, you're fighting not only the weight, but also your body. And, I got to where it just sucks because, 185 is not that hard to fight. It's not hard to make. Mm-hmm. But whenever you're sick, it is. Your body's not going to give up anything. And the next thing you know, you're trying to turn a ride around in 48, fight for your life, and I think that's, whenever I was in there, it wasn't like things weren't clicking like they should have, because I saw a lot of openings. I got his timing down. He really, the only thing he hit me with is that push kick, until he rocked me with that kick. And, I had to rewatch the footage because, it was a good stoppage. And like I told Tim, hey, good fight. But whenever I was in there, whenever I went to it, whenever I threw that jab and I threw that cross, my two right across his face, man, if I'd opened it up 2 inches, it could have been a different night, right? Mm-hmm. But whenever I threw it, I thought I came in far enough, and I threw it. And so what happened was, whenever I was sitting there, I thought I was still moving. And my coach said, no, you literally just stood still. And at that point, I don't even know what was going through my head. Because I told him, I was like, man, I thought that once I threw that cross hook, or my two, I threw it, and then all of a sudden, I was like, I saw the look, and I saw how it felt. I was like, the next one's going to land. So I told my coach, I circled off, and whenever I circled off, I was going to go right back to it. Well, we got on the bus, and he goes, Johnny, you didn't even move. So, like, there's 3 seconds that I'm just standing there. Mm-hmm. Like, literally standing there. He goes, what were you thinking? I look back, I go, I don't know. I really don't know what I was thinking. And that's where, I'm taking it sort of rough right now because, God, everything he did, I knew, I saw, I saw everything. I felt awesome. There's nothing he could do, and then he throws that high kick, and he finished it. So kudos to him.
Well, let's yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Let's just go back for a second. You talked to us about how you were sick. Just how bad shape were you in, and did you find out what exactly was wrong with you? What were some of the symptoms, Johnny? Were you sort of, because I know a lot of fighters, they say they're sick and they sort of play it off like, I was just sick, but sometimes you guys are in a lot worse shape than you really sort of give off. How bad was it?
You know what? It was just like you're running like 102 temperature for 2 days, and you're playing it that way, You're running a high temperature. You're just trying to do everything you can. You're not trying to kill fluids, but you're trying to keep your fluids up a little bit so that way you can fight it. And, I pretty much just told the commission, I was like, guys, I have to fight this fight, you know. And then it broke on Friday, or like late Friday. I think like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And whenever it sort of broke, we tried to hit it hard for, you know, to get that last little bit off. But at that point, my body was just saying, you know, hey, we're just trying to survive at this point. You know what I mean? And you know, because like I said, it's not hard to make 85. And that's what I think is so funny. These people, they're like, oh, he missed weight again. Oh, he did this. Well, you know what? You have no idea. You know what I mean? Like, you have no idea that, you know, what, you know, anytime you get sick, you go to the hospital, what do? They put you in IV, you know, and they hydrate you up. Why? Because the fluids help you fight the sickness. And so that's really what I've been trying to do, is I was trying not to put on a lot of weight, but also I was trying to get, you know, because if I don't break that sickness, then what do? You know, then I don't get the fight. You know what I'm saying? Then you just wasted literally 10 weeks of camps for nothing. And so you're in a catch-22. You know, do you sit there and say, you know what? I was like, I think I was 3 over, and whenever I was 3 over, you're just not, your body's not breaking it. And so what do? You just sit there and say, hopefully I can, because guess what? They're gonna look at you. They're gonna see that you're not doing well. They're gonna check your body temperature, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so like there's a lot of things that were playing in my head, because I'm sitting here going, I really wanted to fight. That's all I thought about, is I wanted to fight. So, but we also thought that if we could break the sweat or break the temperature, we could get down, you know, and it just didn't happen that way, which sucks. It does. But, you know, we got on, it is what it is. Other than that, I really don't know what else to say besides the fact that you know, you train so hard, you do all these things, and all of a sudden it comes down to literally 2 days of being sick that messes up a great camp.
You know, obviously fans know the awesome accomplishments that you've had, and you're a proud guy, and you've had some issues with weight cuts in the past, but like you mentioned, everything was going great and you had a great camp, and then the sickness comes in, and you know in the back of your mind going to that weigh-in that you're not going to be making that weight, and you know that fans are going to react the way they're going to react, and you know sort of a lot of the judgment that's going to come from the MMA community about that. So I'm just wondering, how difficult mentally was it for you to go out there in front of that room, in front of the media fans, you know, go through this unfortunate sickness and know the sort of negativity that was going to come your way when you were standing there and they were going to say that you're not going to make that weight? How difficult was that for you?
It was really difficult, you know, and like I said, you know, you're sitting here going, right now I'm at 200, you know, so it's just, what sucks is that you're like, you know, you lose weight so easily at 185, and then all of a sudden you're sitting here going, everything's on track. You know what I mean? Everything was on track to be down to weight again. And then Wednesday night, Thursday, you know, you're just going, I mean, like, I don't even know really how to explain it besides you're just like, are you freaking kidding me? You know, like, are you freaking kidding me? It's happening. And you know, at that point, the weight was still somewhat coming off, too. So, you know, we weren't killing ourselves, but because we had to let my body rest a little bit, right? But now that I look at the fight, I'm going, well, I should have just made weight. You know, kill my body and make weight, and who cares about the fight? now that I know the outcome of it anyway, right? But it's a catch-22 where you're sitting here going, man, if I can come in healthy, or not healthy, but if I could come in, try to make weight, which I did try to make weight, but if you come in and you try to make weight and then you fail, it's just like, it is what it is. You're just like, I don't even know the best way to really explain it except for that it sucks, because like I said, 185 isn't that difficult. But all you can do is just sit here and say, it is what it is. I mean, you sit here, you do everything that you're supposed to do, and you're running through this, you're running through that, and then the next thing you know, you're caught up with. But there's other things that I'm going to do too. I feel like it's a blessing and a curse that this happened to me, because there's a couple things that I wanted to change in my camp style, if that makes sense. And also, it's a new camp for my coaches. We learned a lot this fight. They learned a lot about me, if that makes sense. And in that fight, in that little bitty 3-day span, counting the fight, they what's the best way to say this? I gained a lot of their respect. And that's, realistically, I don't care what people say about me. I don't care about anything else. As long as my friends and family, as long as they know the truth. You know what I'm saying? They know who I am and all this other stuff. So if somebody who is from, I'm just going to pick a state, let's say Arizona, is talking trash, it doesn't bother me, because guess what? If, these guys, they think they're getting to me whenever they post something on my Twitter, on my Twitter. I don't have to read it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I post my stuff, and I'll scroll through, and if I see somebody talking positive, I'll answer them. If I don't see anything in a couple of scrolls of positivity, guess what? I just walk away. So some of these internet warriors that think they're this and that, and they're talking, saying, oh, this, and this. That's why I'm sort of getting to my point in my life, is that I don't need you. I don't need them right now. That's why I talked to my coach. I said, I'm resetting my life. And whenever I reset it, I'm resetting it the way that I want to, and I'm going to be focusing on things that I want to focus on. And he was super happy to hear that I'm going to do that, and that I'm going to start rededicating my life to some other things, and just moving forward from that. And that's really what this fight did for me. You think you're invincible. You go out there, you make weight easy, you move forward, and all of a sudden, God does amazing things with people, and sometimes it's very humbling what he can do. And he sort of did that to me. And now that I know what I need to do and sort of where I need to move forward from, that's really all that I think about right now.
And I'm excited to hear about some of these new changes you'll be making with your camp. But on that, I know you mentioned how what fans said wasn't really affecting you and how you were staying away from social media. But leading into that Tim Boesch fight, after what happened at the weigh-ins, and fans online saying Johnny Hendricks doesn't have it anymore, he should retire, why is he not making weight, saying all these things about you in the media, and headlines about how Johnny Hendricks misses weight again. Did any part of that at all affect your mindset going into Tim Boesch? Because I imagine it does. You're dealing with being sick, you're dealing with this thing where no one's really listening to what happened to you. No one's really listening to the reason why you missed the weight. Everyone's just putting it down to, oh, it's Johnny Hendricks and he misses weight again, and we can't believe he missed weight this time middleweight. And you're dealing with the fact that you're not sure how your body's even going to go because you're so sick, and this on top of everything else. What kind of effect did it have? I mean, it would be impossible almost for that not to have effect on someone's psyche going into a fight.
It does. But you know what? That's why we're the fighters, and that's why they're the keyboard warriors. You know what I mean? Like, if they could handle that kind of criticism, if I could look at a guy, you know, some of these guys, they're like, "Oh, Johnny, you do steroids." I'm like, look in the mirror, man. You probably pop more steroids than the average person can in their life. You know, and you're gonna sit here and tell me that's all natural. Like, I'm all natural. Like, you know, if I wasn't all natural, I would have a 6-pack or an 8-pack or a 12-pack, whatever you could possibly have at 185. Or I'd have had it at 170. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But I'm not blowing up like these guys. I'm not big like these guys. So whenever you chirp back just a little bit of negativity to them, they crumble like cheese cookies. You know what I'm saying? Where we have to deal with it. You know, as an athlete all my life, whenever somebody sits here and they say their 2 cents, you know what they're really wanting is their 2 cents to be heard. And so, like, for me, I try to block it out. I try to do as much as you can to avoid these negative people. And like you said, sometimes you can't. And, you know, whenever you can't, yeah, it does. You're just, you know, what more than anything, you're sitting here going, man, 85 is so easy to make. You know, like right now, if they said, you know, hey, you had to fight next week, I could make it. Because I know, like, I know I'm not going to get sick in the next 2 weeks. Does that make sense? My body already fought it off. So it's going to be easy to make 185. But can I prove that? No. So these guys, you know, so it really, you know, here's the point that I'm trying to make, I guess. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter that I said, if I say, man, the zombie apocalypse came and they did this, or a perfect example, hey, I got a bunch of dogs, right? I got 6 dogs. If I told my teacher, hey, my dog ate my homework, and it really did, do you think it would matter? Do you think she would believe me? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Some of them would. Yeah, some of them would. But then again, some of them would sit there and look at you and go, no, the dog didn't eat your homework. I know that you got dogs, but they didn't eat your homework. Nobody does that. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, no matter if it's the truth, people don't care about the truth. They care about, like, and that's sort of what's wrong. You know, I hate to go into this, but that's sort of what's going on with the world today. You know, their opinion's right. Like, even though I know, hey, yeah, I got sick, I got this, and that's why I didn't miss weight. But it doesn't matter, because guess what? Their opinion's right. Even though I could sit there and say, yeah, I had 102 temperature. They'd be like, no. My opinion's right. Well, how is your opinion right? You have no idea. They're like, no, I just know, and I don't care what you say. My opinion's right. And so, and that's why I laugh at these. That's why we call them, and that's why as fighters, we always call them internet warriors, because it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter. It's not an excuse in a sense, but it's the truth. What are they going to turn into? Oh, it's an excuse. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. It doesn't matter to them, because once they have a thought process in their head, they're going to believe that thought process. And one thing I've learned is it doesn't matter how hard I can try or what I can do to change that thought process, they're going to have it. And you guys know this too. You're in the media. You know, if you put out a post, like a perfect example, if you put out a post saying, you know, let's see here, how can we do this? You could put out a post that, that says,
I know what you mean, Johnny. I mean, look, me and Casper, we've put out many videos and shared our opinions, and we have a lot of fans, listeners sometimes going, "Oh, what are you talking about? You're a bunch of idiots. You have wrong opinions. These things don't matter." We get a lot of interesting comments all the time, I'm sure, on this episode itself. I think I understand where you're coming from. It's you get a lot of people sort of responding in a certain way to your thoughts, your comments, your performances as an athlete, and at times it can be a little bit difficult. You try not to take it all in, but at times, you do notice that comment out of the corner of your eye.
Yeah, there's a breaking point. There's a breaking point where you just say, you know what? I get it. Okay, I get what you're saying. Why don't you come to Texas and tell me? Okay? Come to Texas and tell me. I got a gym, and anybody can find that gym. Come on in and tell me your 2 cents. Tell me what I could be doing better. You know what I'm saying? And then prove to me why I should be doing that. And this and that, a great example is, my old weight, Lewis, he defended me, saying, yeah, if you get sick, it's hard to cut weight when you're sick. Then I have my other old one, Dolce, who is saying the totally opposite. You know what I mean? And then you got people like Kenny Florian saying, oh, he's just there for a paycheck. You know what I'm saying? And you're going, Kenny, you're an idiot. Because wasn't I forcing the pace the whole fight? Now, wouldn't a paycheck just be over in like 20 seconds in MMA? Does that make sense? Like some of these guys, they just want to blurt out whatever comes to the pickle. Banana, rabbit, instead of sitting here saying, you know what, like you guys, what'd y'all do? Y'all text me. What did I say? I would love to do an interview. You call me up, we talk about this, and we have, you know what I mean, like we figure it out, right? And that's what you do. Instead, some of these people, they just want to hear themselves, they're wasting my air. They're wasting your air, And that's sort of what it is. It's like they just want to say something that people are going to draw to their website, and so that's the gist of it. For me, is that's why I love that y'all text me and say, hey, would you want to do an interview? I was like, yes, because then I can tell you what's going on, speak my side of it, and say, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not going to happen again. Well, I mean, I hope I don't ever get sick before a fight again. But who can really sit there and say, I've never been sick before a fight in my life. And then all of a sudden, it happens. And now, now I'm this has-been who pushes Ken Boach, who fought an okay fight. I'm not saying I fought a great fight. Could I do better? Yes. But I'm forcing the pace. I'm trying to, I know that I don't know how my body's going to hang in there. So I'm trying to force the pace. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. I get knocked out or a TKO, and you're just, and then all of a sudden, like you said, it's like, oh, he's so over. He's a has-been. He'll never be back to where he was. And then I have people saying, oh, he's not an 85er. You know what this really does for me? I'm sorry I'm talking so much. I'm going on rants, but it makes me want to drive so much harder. Okay? And my coaches, they already told me, we don't want to see you for a couple of days, for a week, 2 weeks. We don't want to see you. Because we can already tell, like, I'm so fired up right now that I'd love to get back in there. You know what I'm saying? But they're telling me, hey, back away. Go away. They're telling me to get out of there. Forget about fighting for a day. Forget about fighting for a couple weeks. Forget about life and move forward. So that's what I'm doing right now is I'm just saying, I'm about to cook out for my girls. And friends, and just sort of be human
for a couple of weeks. And then whenever I drive back in there, I can't wait because the things that people are saying, it makes me want that hunger that much more and prove them. So the next time I get my hand raised, I'm going to say, hey, you guys, y'all were behind me. Some of these other guys, eat your crow. Because I am an 85-pounder, and I'm going to get my hand raised, and I'm going to win my next fight, and I cannot wait to prove them wrong.
Well, there you go. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know what to really sort of follow up with. I mean, you answered pretty much all of our questions. We had like 2 pages of questions, and you answered pretty much all of them. We can rule out that you're not retiring because I know that was a big storyline going into the last couple of fights. Obviously, Johnny Hendricks isn't retiring, and obviously, interrupt me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're not retiring. You mentioned that you wanted to make some kind of changes. I guess looking forward, what are some of those changes that you wanted to make in your training camp? You said it was a learning experience. What sort of different sort of things are you going to be doing in the future?
So our coaches, this is the first time we've had our coaches together in a training camp. So some of the things that we're going to really focus on is bringing everybody together. So I'm a people. I like my wife likes to know who my coaches are. My family, I like my kids being around my coaches. So some of the things that we're going to do in off season, we're going to start bringing the coaches around, start doing barbecues together. Whatever it is, that's one thing. So that way we get to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. This fight, they got to see that, hey, we went this way and this happened, right? And they got to see also what's behind the closed door of the week of the fight. So now they know, hey, all right, you try to explain this to somebody, how you work out, this, and this. They don't really comprehend it until they see it firsthand. Now they can say, okay, this is a change that we're going to make, and sort of push forward that way and see what happens. You just gotta. Those are baby steps that you have to make that'll make me a better fighter. And that's really what it is for me, baby steps. Because if I can make baby steps towards the future that I want, I can be here. I can do this. But I have to make the right baby steps, and I have to have those people. And one thing that I saw too, my coaches, they batted for me. They were behind me 100%. So whenever you see that, you're pretty excited that some people, they might not bat for you like that. They may just say, hey, it is what it is. You move forward, and they say whatever.
Well, Johnny, we really appreciate the time. So as we wrap up, there's still a lot of great fans out there. Still a lot of fans who believe in Johnny Hendricks and big fans of yours and are excited to see what happens next. So what's your message to all those fans listening right now?
You know what? The fans that are behind me, thank you, and I will be back. I'm going to be back stronger. Whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger. And my fans, they know that. They know that. They know that I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to come back, and the next fight's going to be. It's going to be better for me, and it's going to. I'm constantly improving, and that's really all I can ask for. And for the people that are behind me, that have stuck behind me, I'm so grateful for it. And those are the people that I've been seeing and listening to for the last 2 days. And that sort of lifts me up, and that's sort of why I have the drive that I have right now. That I want to get back in there. I want to help. I want to make them happy. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Johnny, we appreciate the time, and thank you so much for coming onto the program. I think you've shed a lot of light on a situation that people didn't really know much about, and now they can know all the facts, and I think they'll really appreciate you for it. Guys, make sure to follow Johnny on Twitter and Instagram, @JohnnyHendricks. Johnny, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule with your family to really clear up the situation and come on our program. We can't wait to have you back on the show to talk about your next big fight. I mean, it's exciting to hear there's going to be some changes, and it's good to see what's going on and what's been going on. And thank you so much for coming on the program.
Hey, thank you guys, and thank y'all for giving me the chance to do that.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben, and you're listening to Submission Radio. They're fucking rad.
All right, guys. These next guests did an amazing job over in New York covering Bellator NYC. The men behind Flow Combat. They're joining us today to discuss the Bellator and UFC fights from over the weekend. Our two buddies over from Flow Combat, Dwayne Finley and Hunter Homestack. Welcome back to Submission Radio, guys.
Oh, heck yeah, man. Anytime the invite comes on through, we like to rock with our Australian brethren. I feel like you guys are like Flow Combat, Oceania. Is that what they call it now?
Yeah, sure. Why not? We'll rock that. Hunter, do you agree? Are we good enough to be accepted into Flow Combat Oceania?
Oh man, you're not good enough. You're better.
Oh,
see
wow.
that? You're even better. Yeah, you guys are the best, man. We really appreciate all you guys do, for real. We're always checking out your interviews. Believe that.
Well, the love is 100% mutual. Don't worry about that. And it is great having you guys on the show. Dwayne, let's get straight into it. From your perspective, as someone who's been in the game for a long time, how crazy was it for you to see this Bellator NYC card? And did it stack up for you in terms of big events that you've covered in the past? Because you've covered a lot of big ones.
Hunter will tell you, I kept repeating this over and over, and I'll say it again. The conversation is changing, my friends. I mean, did Bellator surpass the UFC to become the industry leader? No, not even close. But the gap is considerably less now with what's going on. And then our conversation with Scott Coker and the things they planned for the future, man, it was there. Madison Square Garden, was it as big as Conor McGregor at 205? But no, nothing is, and nothing's going to be. But it was close. I mean, it was a crazy night of fights. They rocked out. They lived up to the hype. And I think this is going to be interesting, boys. I say this in a year from this date, 2018. Mark your calendars. The sport will not look anything like that we're familiar with, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for the fighters, but I think Bellator is going to be right there. No doubt about it. WME, whoever's running the UFC, has to wake up. They've been asleep at the wheel for the first 2 quarters of the year. Now they're focused on a boxing fight, and in that space, Bellator is absolutely gaining ground.
Wow. And Hunter, before we go to you, I'm just curious, talk to us a little bit more about what sort of changes you see happening within the next year, Dwayne. Obviously, we've seen a lot of movements in terms of the free market, and it's kind of like, over the years, if you're an MMA fan, you've always seen promotions sort of start to creep up, and then either, they fold or the UFC buys them out. What kind of real changes are you expecting to see within the next year?
Oh, yeah. I definitely, Scott Coker said in our interview that, if they're a free agent, we're going after them. And he said, he even revealed something pretty cool. He said, 90% of the people we've gone after that we've had any interest in, we've landed. So that's a pretty telling situation. And then I look at this, Hunter and I were saying yesterday, we broke that news on Flow Combat. Super prospect Logan Storley signed with Bellator and will fight July 17th. Look at this. Storley had a contract offer from the UFC. Flat out, they wanted him. He chose to go to Bellator, and he listed his reasons because A, he loves the way Bellator, has cared and showcased the wrestlers that they brought over, but B, his sponsorship package now with 5 fights in his career is already double, if not triple, what the Reebok deal would be. So he's not gonna take a step backwards. I thought that was, think about this, guys. 5 years ago, would a prospect ever go to Bellator or the UFC? Heck no. And you look at guys that have been Bellator champions that want to get to the UFC because the UFC is the promised land, so to speak. With Storley coming in and saying, "Hey, man, thanks for your offer, UFC, but I'm going to Bellator." That's a game changer, and that further changes this conversation. Like I'm saying, man, like Bob Dylan said it best. The times are changing. It's happening right now.
Hunter, I'm wondering. We've seen some big companies in the past, Elite XC, Strikeforce, etc. Casper mentioned the UFC either bought them out and destroyed it or something happened to make things fall apart. From your perspective, Hunter, what is Bellator doing differently that those other companies couldn't do when they were getting close to sort of catching up to or even being main competitors for the UFC?
Well, they're legitimately part of the talent conversation. I think that's where it starts. It starts with the fighters and it starts with the talent. They're nowhere near as deep as the UFC, and I don't think anybody is under that impression at all. But you can legitimately compare the 2 welterweight divisions right now, and that's certainly a start. You've never had any other organization besides the UFC that you could stack up against the UFC and say there's actually an argument to be had. It's kind of what I said. We did a pre-fight show for Flow Combat, and we were in our hotel room before the event saying, what's the better event, Bellator NYC or UFC 211? which I think many people would agree to this point, UFC 211 is the best pay-per-view of the year. The fact that that's even a conversation, you know, I think we ultimately decided that UFC 211 was slightly better. But the fact that you can even have that conversation now shows that Bellator is on the right path. And I think that all starts with the fighters. You know, beyond the fighters, though, Bellator's PR is super buttoned up. You know, that's something that I was super impressed with them, the way they handled the media, the way they gave us every opportunity we needed. Good Wi-Fi. You guys know how important that is.
Oh, yeah.
Just the little things, man. They were buttoned up top to bottom, and to go out to take on Madison Square Garden, their biggest event ever, you would expect some hiccups, but there really weren't any. I can't think of a single thing coming out of that entire media week where I was like, man, Bellator really wasn't on the ball with that. Man, they were just super on top of it. The professionalism was there, but more than that, they have a friendliness as well that appeals to me as a media member. You know, I don't feel like I'm walking into a zone where there's going to be tension if I write something bad or this or that. They understand that we're there to do a job, and they're accommodating our job to the max. And that, it felt great, honestly. The way they treated us felt great. And yeah, man, I just think on all those levels, they have so much more experience than anybody else that has ever come into this position. And like Bo said, I tend to agree with him. It looks like they're here to stay, and it looks like that conversation is certainly changing.
You're spot on about the media, the whole, you know, PR and the way they handle the media. I remember seeing an email from Bellator. I remember it was when, I think they were saying Vanderlei wasn't going to be at a certain press conference, but they did mention the media will still be getting Roscoe's Chicken, and I said, yes, that's a company I like right there. But let's, and I know you guys will enjoy that as well. But let's talk about Bellator 180. Let's talk about Bellator NYC. This one's for you, Dwayne. Apart from the main and the co-main fights, a lot of crazy things happened. What were sort of some of the big fights that stood out to you? What left a big impression on you?
Now, I'll tell you, and you guys may very well know this, but Mr. Finley is an acolyte of Lord Chaos. I stay in dialogue with the Dark Lord of Chaos, you know, on a bi-monthly basis. So anytime I call my buddy up, I say, hey, Lord Chaos, let's do it. We got fights. And sure enough, I lean over to Hunter, who was sitting next to me. I'm like, it's time to summon him. And sure enough, that was when Aaron Pico was on his way to the cage. And then Chaos stuck around and hung out and rocked out the rest of the night. I mean, I love it. I love fights that have implications, not just title belts or whatnot or a purse. I love fights that can affect the entire landscape and dynamic. So Aaron Pico was super, you know, touted going in to see what happened to him. You know, hype getting derailed is never a good thing, but I always like to watch how they handled it. And, you know, I call it the Conor way or the Ronda way. And Pico went the Conor way after and faced the music. I love that. Chandler's injury was wacky. You almost had a double knockout in Mitrione versus Fedor. I mean, but I'm going to – my favorite fight of the night was Lima Larkin. I knew leading up that was going to be the banger. You know, Lima has flown under the radar for years. He just needed a big stage, the right opponent, and man, I was happy for Douglas that he weathered that. He weathered that test, answered it strong, and now he's looking at Rory McDonald. I mean, Douglas Lima told me, he's like, man, you know, 5 years ago, I'm walking around at Bellator 49 at some casino. There's no crowd, there's no nothing. We're just eating Subway, and now I'm in Madison Square Garden. When I walk outside, I get recognized and all this. I mean, it's great. It's great for a talented fighter. And he was so happy to have Rory McDonald waiting for him. I'm telling you, I mean, I don't think anybody's ever said they're excited about fighting Rory. But he's like, you don't understand, you know, coming from the tournament format, having to wait for somebody to win the tournament, all this. He's like, now I get to fight Larkin, which is the biggest fight of my career, and I get to walk right into the next biggest fight of my career, which is just bigger, you know, just more conversation of the bigger things that are happening.
And if he's able to beat McDonald, I mean, now you start talking about how good he really is and how people have underestimated him for a really long time. Hunter, I just want to get your thoughts on James Gallagher. He's a young fighter in Bellator who's really built himself an impressive fan base. What did you think about his win over Machida? And how far do you think he can go in the division?
I thought his win over Machida was incredible, man. I really did. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't super sold on the kid going in. And at the weigh-ins, he did the Conor shtick a little too hard for me. You know, like it was kind of like he saw one of Conor's weigh-ins and like practiced in a mirror with it. That's how it felt to me. But man, after the fight, you can't help but believe in that kid. I mean, when you go out, like he said in the post-fight press conference, or it was either inside the cage or at the post-fight press conference, one or the other, he said it's about talking the talk and walking the walk. And I wasn't sure that he would walk the walk if he kept talking himself up the way he was. But damn, did he put on a show. I mean, that fight was a wrap as soon as that hit the mat. Like, that wasn't even close. To go out there and do it to a veteran who not only is a veteran mixed martial artist, but is a veteran martial artist, period. A dude has been doing martial arts his entire life. That's impressive on any level, and especially at his age, with his trajectory, with him having the Irish crowd behind him. That kid can absolutely go far, and there are some interesting fights for him in that division. I know they've been talking about AJ McKee a lot, and if that's the matchup right there. Whoever wins that is going to be in a much larger conversation, just like Douglas Lima. We're not going to start wondering who the best guy in Bellator is. We're going to start wondering how good that guy is overall in the entire landscape of MMA. So that's really fun.
For sure. And it's a little bit disappointing that it came out that AJ McKee was sort of putting on that feud for the cameras. It was a lot more fun when, you know, everybody was keeping kayfabe and we all believed it was real. But it's crazy when you see James Gallagher, like even in the interviews, his laugh is exactly the same as Conor McGregor's, and you sort of wonder how much of that is Conor's influence, or I don't know, maybe that's just how it is down there at Ireland. But as long as they're putting people away, as long as James Gallagher is going out there and winning and, you know, smashing people in the first round, that's really all that matters. Dwayne, I'm wondering what you thought about this fight between Ryan Bader and Phil Davis. We had Ryan on the show just before talking about his win, what a special night that was. But, you know, there was some controversy. Obviously, Jimmy Smith and a lot of people on the internet thought that maybe Phil Davis had won. How did you score that fight, and what did you think of Ryan's sort of first performance in you know, under the Bellator banner?
You know, I got to give this one to Hunter, man, because Hunter pointed out just the truth on this, that these two guys, I think in this second fight, proved it even more. These two guys are just so closely matched skill-wise. I think if they fought 10 more times, every fight would look exactly the way the first two have. You know what I mean? That, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think that with how everything went that night, it kind of seemed a little lackluster. You know, I do that good, bad, and strange column, and, you know, I put that in the bad, and it wasn't bad. It was just a chess match more so than checkers, you know, and but it was good, though. I mean, you know, Davis had a good performance. He could have arguably won. I agree. I had it for Bader, but then Bader finally gets the belt. He's been chasing for a long time, you know. But and Hunter also said, you know, with the gap at 205, it kind of harkens back to the days of JDS Kane rivalry, where it's those two guys and nothing else behind them for a long way. So, you know, but the good thing for Bellator is they have King Mo, they have Linton Vassell, they have a few other people, you know, floating around that they can fight, you know, a couple more good fights and then build it back up if that's the way it goes. But yeah, I thought it was a good scrap. It just was sandwiched between a lot of madness, so it kind of dulled down.
I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because it'll be good to see who Ryan gets next and what happens after that. But what's the feeling here, Hunter? Do we think there's any chance Chael Sonnen has his eyes set on the title in the future, or do you think he's just going to stay with the big fights and let the other guys fight for the titles instead?
Oh, man, can you ever count Chael Sonnen out of a title shot? Like, have we learned nothing by watching MMA for the last 7 years, you know? Chael Sonnen is always one epic quote away from a title shot as far as I'm concerned. So I will absolutely not rule that out. But I will say, hearing Chael talk at the post-fight presser, you know, talking to him a little bit after the fight, it doesn't sound like that's on his mind. I really don't think that's his aim right now. Fedor seems to be his aim, and oddly enough, Rory McDonald seems to be his aim. So it looks like he's going after just odd fights, you know, big money, interesting circus matchups, if you will, but they're legitimate competitors, so that might not be fair. But you get my point here. I don't know that he's exactly angling for a 205 title shot, but would Chael Sonnen versus Ryan Bader be something I'm interested in seeing? No, not at all. Honestly, it's not. No.
Well, let's talk about this Fedor loss. Dwayne, I'll cut to you. Let's talk about the winner here. We understand Matt Mitrione gave you a leg kick after the fight. How exactly did that happen, and what did you say to get such a punishing reaction from old Mitrione?
Oh man, me and old Bone Mitrione go way back, you know, and can't trust that guy for nothing. What I'm upset with myself, gentlemen, is he gave me a heads up, and by asking if my phone was in my pocket, and I just didn't catch it in the moment. No, what it was about, if you caught what Bellator PR guy Danny Brenner said right before he kicked me, he goes, "Oh yeah, you know, is it like the time you guys broke that fight?" He was referring to when Flow Combat broke the Mitrione Fedor fight, which there was some hubbub that I got it from Mitrione, which I didn't. But there was kind of a backlash about it. And Mitrione went to play it off and then just kicked me in the leg. And I'll say that was Wednesday or Thursday. My damn leg still hurts from that big. You know what Hunter pointed out? I technically weathered more strikes than Fedor did in that fight. So it's a Fedor Emelianenko. You know what I mean?
Well, talk to us a little bit about what this win does for him, Dwayne, because Matt beat Fedor over the weekend. A lot of people wondering what's sort of next for him. What do you think it's done for where he is at in the sport? Because even though it was a Fedor that was a little bit older and it's not the Fedor that we remember, being able to say that you beat Fedor is still something that's pretty special for a fighter.
Absolutely, and I do want to clear something up too. When we were walking back and we got the post-fight interview with Mitrione, he said, "Hey," he threw out a challenge to Stipe, and him and Stipe are friends. So what he was saying is not like, "Hey, let's fight." It was like, "Hey, Stipe, help us push this Muhammad Ali act. Get behind that, And then he said, "Yeah, and if, get that, we can do the promotional dance, or whatever." But what he meant was for Stipe to throw some power behind pushing to get that act passed. But what this will do great things for Mitrione, and it's honestly the best case scenario in my opinion for this guy, because Mitrione was never, I don't think he's never going to beat Stipe. He was never going to beat Cain Velasquez, those guys. But he could beat some guys in the top 10. I mean, he smoked Derek Lewis. You know what I mean? Like the Travis Brown fight was crap because of eye pokes. But you look at this. He goes over to Bellator. He wins his first 2 fights. He gets Fedor. He beats Fedor. He's making a good amount of money. He's fighting on big stages. It's the best way for that to work out for him. I think they have a little more of a quandary with what they're going to do. As you fight Chet Congo, I know he doesn't want to fight Roy Nelson because they're friends and they've already done that dance. So, I think it's great for him. I think it's great for his career. There was a lot of talk. Bellator was calling him the best heavyweight of all time. The best heavyweight in the game. I don't think that's true, and that's just me being realistic because Stipe has more weapons. But yeah, I mean, Mitrione's looking better than he's ever looked before. And with Matt, it's all about headspace. When Matt engages and he gets motivated and he can stay motivated in his head, he's a tough son of a gun to get out of there. And I think this win will do miles for his confidence.
Yeah, man, I just wanted to hop in and kind of add Mitrione's win over Fedor. Like you said, it was maybe an aging, older Fedor, but I think Fedor, the fact that you look at the stat sheet, so to speak, and see that he lost by a first-round KO, can we just keep in mind that he was a fraction of an inch or a fraction of a second away from winning that fight himself? It's not like Fedor is suddenly not dangerous. There was literally a double knockdown in the fight. If Fedor had just moved his head a little to the right or left, who knows? Maybe he would have ended up with the first-round knockout over Mitrione, and then this is an entirely different conversation. So I just think it's the revisionist history of people saying, well, it's crazy. Why did people ever give Fedor a chance in that fight? We knew he was washed up. Like, he was literally half a second away from winning that fight himself. So credit to Mitrione, because I feel like it's kind of an asterisk over his win at this point that is undeserved.
I definitely agree in the sense that it really could have gone either way. But Hunter, in terms of Fedor, obviously, let's be honest, the guy is 40 years old. I'm not saying he should retire. I'm not saying, one way or the other, but, his legacy is essentially behind him. He's 40 years old. He suffered probably the most brutal knockout of his entire career. Do you still want to continue seeing him fight? Because it sounds like you do. Or are you sort of the thought that maybe it's kind of pointless for him to take on these guys that are more dangerous and more young than him?
Oh, yeah, man. I actually told Dwayne that immediately after the fight. I said, have you ever seen Fedor stiffened up like that? Like, we've seen him maybe beaten pretty badly. Bigfoot Silva really put it on him, but you've never seen him really stiffened, flat out KO'd like that. It was kind of scary to see. And that's an image that I'm not trying to say that I want to see Fedor fight again. All I'm saying is that offensively, he's still a very dangerous fighter, and he was, half a second away from winning. But if he hung him up, he could have hung him up 5 fights ago, and nobody would have had any problem with that. So at this point, it's basically, hey, man, you've done more for this sport than 99.9% of people ever will. Do what you want. I'm not in a position to really speculate on what Fedor should or shouldn't do with his career after all he's done. So if he wants to keep going, that's on him. Personally, of course I'll watch it because it's Fedor, but personally I'm not like, Fedor, please fight. I can have it or I can't, and either way I'll respect what he has done for the sport.
Hunter, I'm just curious. Are you a fan of this Chael Sonnen Fedor matchup? I know you just mentioned, and we all saw that Sonnen is really trying to push this fight next. Does it make sense for him to fight Fedor next?
Yeah. After all I just said, yeah, I kind of like this matchup because Chael's not a guy. Hey, I love Chael Sonnen. Listen, I do. I love Chael, but Chael's not a guy who's going to hurt Fedor Emelianenko, right? He might beat him. He could beat him. But I just don't feel like Fedor is going to take irreversible damage in the process. So if anybody has to fight Fedor, I hope it's Chael.
Dwayne, what did you think about this Vanderlei Silva fight? We saw Vanderlei coming back after 4 years being on the sidelines. We saw Chael Sonnen coming back after, a fairly underwhelming performance against Tito Ortiz. Physically, he looked completely different. Against Tito, he looked like, he was sort of starting training. Here, he looked almost like he did in the UFC. What did you think of Chael Sonnen's performance? And I guess just the fight in general. It sort of had its ebbs and flows. What did you think, Dwayne?
I got a few texts actually for the question that I asked Chael at the post-fight press conference, because it's true, man. Like I asked him, I said, hey, you right that if he loses to Vanderlei, this all goes away. You can't headline a show anymore. You can't be the draw. You can't say, you can't be Chael Sonnen really anymore. And he, he agreed. He said, I didn't really think of it that way, but it's absolutely right. Because he, in the lead up, guys, he was saying, Tito's the worst fighter in the world, and I lost to the worst fighter, so that makes me the worst, and that didn't sit well. And you could tell that, like you said, his physicality, his mindset, he was really focused on a different level, man. And the Chael gift of gab will always be there, but that's how he fought. Now, the reason I don't like the Fedor matchup, I do. It makes sense if you want to get in there and put some big names against each other. But, Vanderlei Silva's historically not had a drop and takedown defense and can't do anything off the ground like we saw. And Chael got stung a few times on the feet. Vanderlei had him kind of wobbled here and there. But Fedor has a great ground game, and he's big. So, will Chael be able to take Fedor down and hold him there? I definitely don't think so. So I think Chael is at a point in his career where he's, that's the one thing you can knock Chael Sonnen all you want, but he always puts other people over, man. And like that guy always helps push people that are in his company with him. And he's on the dais at the post-fight press conference talking about Freeman and Brett Primus and these guys, and saying Douglas Lima was the guy of the night. It was everything but Chael Sonnen. So I think the Wanderlei fight, he did exactly what he had to do to stick to the game plan. And then in proper Chael Sonnen fashion, he was already picking his next fight before the sweat had dried, and that's not just talking about Fedor. Then he's also picking a fight with Rory McDonald. That's Chael Sonnen, folks, and it's good. It's good to have Chael around.
I think between the fights that he takes on short notice to the fighters that have nothing to do with him that he still puts over, I think in a lot of ways he's the epitome of a company man. I'm just curious, you guys were right there. What did you make of this whole Tito Ortiz situation? Because we weren't there. We saw sort of the blowback on Twitter. What did you see from what Tito was saying to Chael and that whole back and forth?
Oh, you know what? I thought it was stupid, man. Like, even in the back afterwards, like some Bellator and Viacom guys, I'm not going to mention names, but they were like, what the hell was Tito doing? Tito was trying to make this about him. And what I think is funny is Tito always plays this, Americana, kind of pumping his fist and raising the flag. During the national anthem, he's over there talking smack to Sonnen, he's not giving the national anthem its due and whatever. And I thought it was funny. From where Hunter and I were sitting, you could see it. Chael was waiting for the fight, and Ortiz is like getting close enough to shout, kind of like Hunter, kind of like John, what's Double J MMA yelling at Jake Lindsay in Sioux Falls, But yeah, I thought it was clown shoes, man. Like, Tito, if you're retired, be retired. And Tito's done a lot to help a lot of fighters, and I've gone on record to say that Tito doesn't get enough credit for what he's done, but this was about something else, man. Get out of the way. You just get out of the way. You've done your bit. You're retired now. Let these guys do their thing. I thought it was disrespectful on Tito's part to be talking during the damn anthem.
And Hunter, I'm curious because during the broadcast, they captured Tito on camera. They kind of had one of those like two window things, and Tito was on one side talking smack, and then you had Chael on the other one. Do you think Bellator was just trying to capitalize on whatever was going on there? Do you think they had any idea Tito was going to go in there and try and do that? And do you think he's sneakily trying to get another fight with Sonnen? Because it just makes no sense. Why would you just go there and talk smack if you're never planning to fight again?
Sure. I don't know if he's planning to fight Sonnen or not, but I certainly think he's trying to stay relevant and trying to always keep his name in the conversation. I mean, how perfect of an example is this? We're talking about Tito Ortiz right now, despite the fact that he was only in the crowd. So he did his job as Tito has always had a knack of doing. Just somehow he weasels his way into the conversation again. And I mean, he took Chael to school. What can you say? When you choke somebody out, then I guess you get to talk smack. I guess that's like prison rules, man. You've earned that. So I don't know. I don't know if he's trying to fight Chael again or if he's trying to fight at all again. But regardless, the Tito Ortiz stock went up a little bit as far as he's concerned, I'm sure, because people are talking about him. And I guess that's ultimately what counts.
Yeah. Let's move on from Bellator 180 and Bellator NYC to, I guess, this week or this past weekend. It was the smaller show of the weekend, and that's obviously UFC Oklahoma. Hunter, we'll keep the Hunter train rolling. I want to get your thoughts first on this Dennis Siver versus BJ Penn matchup. Really, really difficult to watch if you're a BJ Penn fan. For any old school MMA fan, this is difficult to watch. And, you know, a crazy situation where I said it before on the show where Dennis Siver, back when BJ Penn was reigning king, Dennis Siver, A, wouldn't have been getting a title shot. B, even if he did, he would have been such a heavy underdog. And to see him just put an absolute beating on BJ Penn, what did you make of it, Hunter? What were your thoughts when you saw the fight playing out? And I guess the next logical question is, do you want to see BJ Penn continue at this point?
Oh man, that's like Fedor times 1,000 right now with BJ for me, man. It's hard. It's honestly getting hard to watch for me. Like you said, it really is. And BJ's a guy just like Fedor, done so much for the sport. Maybe never had that winning streak, but was consistently fighting the best guys at a super high level. And just to see his drop off is kind of crazy. And it's almost funny because I was talking to Dwayne at Bellator for some reason. I don't remember why this came up, but I said, can you believe that, like, looking back at Conor McGregor's career, Dennis Siver gave him one of the better fights, you know? Like, Dennis Siver really didn't go out as easily as most of the guys. So and Dennis Siver is no slouch. When you look at it like that, maybe this version of Dennis Siver certainly looked leaned out, looked older. It was pretty evident. Yeah, man. If BJ Penn can't beat that version of Dennis Siver, then I feel like the BJ Penn as we know him is long, long gone. And unfortunately, in retrospect, that should have been clear for the last about 4 or 5 fights. But when will we learn our lesson, boys? I think BJ's done, and we should go ahead and put an end on that one.
Well, Dwayne, I'm curious because you've obviously seen it all when it comes to BJ. Couple of curious things about him. Obviously, the inside-out shorts. Also, it looked like he didn't really have much motivation in that fight, especially near the end. It didn't really look like he really wanted to be in there. We know financially, it seems like he's not doing it for the money, even though he got paid rather well for the fight. We just saw some of the figures that came in. So and it doesn't look like he really wants to be in there either. So what exactly do you think is his motivation to keep on fighting?
It's funny. I heard Hunter chuckle because you mentioned the word motivated, and that's become like the Bigfoot of MMA, right? That a motivated BJ Penn. It's a legend. Here's the thing, man. I think after, and I'm serious about this. I would never tell a fighter, because working with them like we do, it's their decision. But man, after the third Frankie beating he took in Las Vegas, dude, like just stop. You got plenty of money. You got your legacy intact. You're a Hall of Famer legend, but here's the thing now, if you continue to do this, it absolutely affects your legacy. It absolutely does. I mean, he hasn't won a fight and man, like 6 years or something like that. It is absolutely crazy. So I don't know why he's doing it. I don't know why he continues to do it. And there's something in him that's making that tells him to continue, but he needs better people around him to be like, hey man, you're like the governor of Hawaii. You can just kick back and be BJ Penn forever, But now with Max Holloway's rise, it's crazy that that BJ Penn isn't like the biggest thing in Hawaii right now. You know what I mean? But he's done that to himself, and I just, like I said, I would never tell him when, or I would never say dog a fighter for sticking around too long. because that's their choice. But just being honest, man, after I saw him take that whooping at the hands of Edgar in Vegas after TUF, it's time to wrap him up, man.
It's crazy because the story with BJ for so long has been that he should retire, and yet here we are still discussing it, whether he should retire or not. And I feel like the answer is always the same, and it's a bit of a shame because, and a lot of people have brought this up, guys like BJ, guys like Fedor, we're talking about whether they should retire or not, but the sad thing is I think that they just really don't know what to do with themselves in retirement. BJ Penn, I think he's fine in terms of money, but if he goes home, he's sort of... He doesn't know what to do. What is he going to be doing? Sit around the house, smoking weed all day? It gets boring after a while. But Hunter, I'll cut to you. I want to talk about Felice Herrig versus Justine Kish. Now, obviously, there are some things that we have to talk about. But before we do, I just want to get your thoughts on sort of Felice Herrig as kind of this underdog, this dark horse moving her way up the strawweight division. A lot of people counted her out after Paige Van Zandt, after the long layoff that she took. I believe she had a lot of issues physically with her body. She looks like she's back on track. And she sort of broke down a little bit. It was very emotional in that post-fight press conference and sort of said, hey, I don't think the UFC really want to promote me. What did you make of that? And do you think that Felice Herrig, for Felice Herrig to say that she's not young or beautiful enough is kind of crazy. Do you think she should be promoted? And what did you think of her sort of all people, Miss always has a smile on her face coming out and saying that?
Right. I think that was a very raw, emotional moment. Everybody in the fight game that you talk to on an intimate level like that will tell you it takes everything out of them. It truly is their soul in there. The very few fighters will fight just to cash a check. So I'm sure with how much training, how much she has invested in this, not just for this fight, but for her entire life, to get to that point, it's very emotional. And especially right after a fight, fighters will sometimes say things they don't mean. Look at Derek Lewis, who just came out of retirement like 2 weeks later, it feels like. They can say things in the heat of the moment that maybe got a little overblown. And I'm not sure if she would revisit that today, that she would feel exactly the same. But I kind of get where she's coming from. But at the same time, she's on a good run right now, and I'm absolutely not trying to discredit that at all. But when you look at at her division and the way the UFC markets females in general, what were they going to market with her, really? She hasn't done much in that division to warrant a ton of marketing. And I don't know what she was expecting, I guess is what I'm getting at. It's not that I don't think it's that they think she's not young and beautiful. I think it's just that they didn't see her as a huge piece in the puzzle moving forward, but she sure as hell is on the radar now. So I think the next fight will be the one to tell whether or not they're going to invest in the Felice Herrig business or not. And we'll see how that goes. But her performance, like you said, it's good to see her get back on the winning track. She has looked really good lately. It's good to see another contender in that division that desperately will need contenders because the champion just keeps wiping them out. So that it's all positive for that division. For her to get like that was a cool moment. But yeah, man, ultimately I feel like, what do you want the UFC to do? Like, what has she done to make them market her more than they have, I guess is my question.
Dwayne, I want to get to you about the incident in the fight, the Code Brown that happened during the fight where Justine, got out of submission, but also got something out at the same time. I'm curious, out of all the Code Browns that you've seen in your career as an MMA journalist, where does this one rank for you?
Man, yeah, you got to give me that question, huh? Man, it's just a Code Brown is never a good thing, man. It's like nobody wins ever. You know what I mean? And that's like the worst thing that you could have happen. And yeah, it was bad, dude. Go away from the Yoel Romero purple shorts, the famous Chuck Liddell situation, I guess. But this was like the fight was going on and they were exchanging and there was straight up Duke on the canvas. I don't know, man. And then she lost, so. Yeah, it was just a shitty night. That's pun intended, but yeah, man, that's just gross. And then I see people gifting it, things like that. I'm like, man, this is poop, guys. It's embarrassing, but it's still poop. So I don't know. It was bad. It was probably all-time tops.
Yeah. Brown. I will say, I admire the fact that Justine went on Twitter and just straight up owned it. She lived right up to the fact that she had just shit everywhere, and she kind of played into that, and I think she won a lot of fans in doing so, man. That was the right play. That's something you can't run away from because, like Dwayne said, the gifts are there. The evidence, we all see the evidence right there. You're not running away from it. You might as well own up to it. So kudos to her on that.
Yeah, as your good friend Chael Sonnen would say, you got to steer into it. I mean, you got to feel bad for her, but a lot of respect to her. And also, I think one of the real heroes is also Felice Herrig for continuing on and you know, really sort of, I mean, she had shit on her foot and she still won. So a lot of respect to both ladies. Let's move up the card. Let's talk about Tim. And by the way, you handled that very well, Dwayne. I must say. I'll throw you a nice easy one. Tim Boesch versus Johnny Hendricks. This was supposed to be a nice incremental step for Johnny Hendricks in the middleweight division. Wasn't really the fight that was going to say whether he'll be a contender or not, but it was a nice step up towards fighting a real middleweight as opposed to Hector Lombard, who, you know, you could still sort of look at as a welterweight. It didn't go well for Johnny Hendricks at all. We spoke to him before he revealed why he missed weight. He was sick, unfortunately, and everything up until that point, according to him, was going very well. What do you think this does for Johnny, I guess, in terms of his UFC career? Because we know a win like this for Tim Boesch, it's just gravy on top of already, you know, a decent, fun-filled career. But what do you think this does for Johnny? Dwayne, I'm curious what you think.
Oh, Johnny's gone, man. Like, I don't think there's any recovery after this with the missed weight and the lackluster performance. And that's the thing, man, is I just don't know. You know, I think it showed what Johnny has left, and that's not much. So if you want to get a good segue going from Kish's Code Brown, Johnny's career is at a Code Brown right now. How you like that play?
Wow, rough. You mince no words. What do you think about this, Hunter? Apparently, look, we just spoke to Johnny and apparently had 102 fever, I think a couple of days before. What did you think about that, Hunter?
See, I didn't know that he was sick. I was ready to go in as well. The problem with Johnny Hendricks is this. Even if that fever is legitimate, if he was sick, if he wasn't able to properly cut weight, he's messed up so many times that nobody's going to believe that. Nobody's going to buy that. So he's kind of dug his own grave in that respect. And obviously fighting with a 102-degree fever, at least leading up to it, is not going to do you any favors. But he looked uninspired, man. He didn't look great at all. Tim Boesch kind of paced him early. You know, it was one of those knockouts where he wasn't totally unconscious, which I hate to kind of like harp on that point, but like there is a difference between quitting and being knocked out. And I'm not saying Johnny Hendricks quit, but it looked more of that route. You know, there was that one point where he was on a knee and you could just see it in his eyes, man. He was checked out. He was ready to go down at that point. And it's an unfortunate career because you look at that GSP fight that everybody feels, or the majority of people at least feels, a robbery. That changed everything for Johnny Hendricks. Ever since that point, he has not been the same. And that, it feels like it was just the beginning of the end for him right there. And so unfortunate to have it be because of that. What I want from Johnny Hendricks is for him to be straight up honest about everything. He keeps coming out with this line, you know, I'm better than ever. I'm at a point. You guys aren't going to believe the Johnny Hendricks who's here. Just be honest with yourself and be honest with us, man. If you're not there, don't be there. But whenever you say you're there, then we start to expect that old Johnny Hendricks, and then it's disappointing. You know, I'm okay if Johnny Hendricks wants to play, I'm late in my career, just fighting to see what I got, having some fun angle. That's what I would love to hear from him. Instead, he keeps playing it up like he's back to his championship self, and it's clear that he's not. So I don't know. Not a fan, man. Johnny Hendricks, we beat his weight loss challenge, and now he can't get it himself. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
Let me talk on that for a second. You know, Johnny got all bent out of shape when old Glow and I took the Hendricks weight loss challenge. So, hey, we did it. He got mad. So, you know what, Johnny? We're going the other way now for you, dog. We're going up. We're going to see if we can't go up a weight class and see if we can't hit it too. So yeah, the way Glow cooks those steaks, man, we're going to hit 180. We're going to hit 15 pounds up and no problem. Mm-hmm. But no, and seriously, we weren't ripping on him to do it. We weren't. It was nothing like, we have nothing but I've worked with Johnny for a long time. I've done a lot of interviews and stories with him. I have nothing but, kindness towards him, but still, when's enough, you know? And then we interviewed Ben Askren out of Madison Square Garden, and Ben Askren's been harping on Johnny since college that he just doesn't have the discipline and the drive. And it's like motivated BJ Penn. Like, oh yeah, it's like mythically going to happen. When is Johnny going to get motivated? But the thing is, look, man, he had those wars with Lawler. He had a war with Condit. He had that long fight with GSP. It's okay just to not have it anymore.
I'm looking forward to seeing a super heavyweight Hunter walking around. I wonder what that's going to look like. And that's going to be a lot of extra stakes for you, Hunter. So I don't think that's something that you're going to be straying away from. But let's quickly touch on some other controversy on the night, which is, of course, the main event. Dwayne, what did you think of Mario Yamasaki's stoppage in that main event? Of course, for people that weren't watching it, Kevin Lee looked like he had a good choke under Chiesa's neck. It was a rear naked choke. However, after watching the replays, it was clear that Chiesa hadn't tapped yet. However, Yamasaki stopped the fight. What was your takeaway from the way that fight ended? Because Lee looked very dominant in that fight up to that point. However, until that tap happens, the fight's not really over.
Yeah, man, and that's the thing is, like, look, you could break it down a lot of ways, and he was under the chin. Lee wasn't going to let go of that choke. There's 95% that Chiesa's not getting out of it, but that's the thing is because Yamasaki stole the moment. Now there's an asterisk hanging over, and it was a great performance for Lee. And a lot of people say, robbed Chiesa, blah blah, of a chance. No, it robbed Lee of a definitive win. You know what I mean? And he should be okay. Yeah, I just choked out Michael Chiesa. Give me Tony Ferguson. Give me Khabib. One of those two guys. But now it's like, let's run that back. I don't think there's any reason running back. I think Kevin Lee showed that he's the better fighter. I think he had the win no matter what. Lee did say on Twitter, I felt him go stiff. I didn't see that anywhere in the highlight. Chiesa was astutely aware when Yamasaki stepped in. So I just hate to see it, man. I hate to see. I get that referees are in there for fighter safety, but it wasn't like Chiesa's eyes rolled back in his head and he went limp and Mario let him get choked for another 6 seconds as like Mizugaki Faber style, where you actually think somebody got killed in there. It was just premature. And for a veteran referee like Mario Yamasaki, that's unexcusable, man.
And Mario Yamasaki had a bit of a look about him as well. I don't know if he had like a bit of a Johnny Depp influence, but he kind of looked like a rock and roller from back in the day. It seemed like, I don't want to put this on him, but it seemed like there was some leather pants being worn. There was a bit of facial hair. Looked like he put a bit of product in the hair. So I don't know if Yamasaki's back out on the market. Him and his girlfriend had a breakup. I don't know what's going on. He's on Tinder now. But he was definitely strutting his stuff in that octagon. He was peacocking a little bit. It was a little bit of peacocking from Yamasaki. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy it. He's a very sexy man, but maybe this is Yamasaki.
You're not going to say it didn't baseline excite you. Hey, I get it, man. Like that, the spiky hair, him and Sage are bringing it back. But still, man, like, Dana went nuts and, hey, quit worrying about doing that heart signal and actually referee a fight. It's right, man. Like, who's the other guy? There's Mario Mazzagatti, Steve Mazzagatti, Yamasaki. I don't think Dana likes those last names that end in I, but still, man, come on, do your job right. There's good refs for a reason. There's refs like everybody say Herb Dean and Big John. They get very few things wrong.
I was going to say, I think Mark Goddard is a guy who really doesn't get enough credit as well. He's another guy who's really, really up there. I like his stern officiating style. I know some people take issue with it and they say, the referees shouldn't yell this and that. I think the referee should go in there and have a very dictatorship style way of officiating the fight, and I like when he gets in there and does that. It was a shitty situation, Dwayne, like you mentioned. Obviously, it robbed Kevin Lee of what should have been his crowning moment. It was so weird. Much like I'm sure you guys, I watched the fight on replay over and over again. It just seemed like Chiesa at that point completely stopped hand fighting and you didn't really know which way he was going. It looked like he was going to tap, but then he never really did. And so, of course, you never really want to base anything on what could have or should have happened. We saw Justine Kish a couple of fights before that getting out of some really, really bad chokes. I guess what I'm angling at, Hunter, and I'm wondering what you think, should there be an immediate rematch? Do you want to see Chiesa Lee 2? Because, I mean, it was a fun fight up until that point, but do you think this warrants an immediate rematch, potentially in Detroit, potentially in December? Or would you rather Lee move on to other things? Maybe fight Tony, maybe fight Khabib or somebody else?
Yeah, I think Lee deserves to step up that ladder for sure. I think he did win that fight. Like Dwayne said, it robbed him of that moment, and that definitely sucks. But I'm also 95% sure that the sleeps were coming one way or another. Like you said, he completely stopped hand fighting, and in his post-fight speech, he had an explanation for that. But let's think about this: if the blood flow is being restricted to your brain at that level, can you really be counted on to be thinking clearly in those couple 2-3 seconds? I mean, I get what Chiesa thinks he was doing, but what he thinks he was doing, what he was actually doing might be two totally different things given that scenario. So I'm just saying, Kevin Lee's a guy we talk to a lot actually at Flow Combat, and he's talked to me extensively about his back control, because if you remember in his UFC debut against Al Iaquinta tuned him up on the feet, but Lee got it to the ground at one point and damn near had a rear naked choke for like minutes, but just could not finish that choke. Ever since that point, Kevin Lee has become obsessed. I know MMA fans love that word, obsessed. Kevin Lee is obsessed with finishing from the back. And if you look at literally his last 4 fights, he's finished them from the back. He now has 3 rear naked chokes, and his TKO of Jake Matthews came from the back as well. When Kevin Lee gets your back, it's game over, man. And I know Michael Chiesa is a step up from those guys. That shit was locked in, man. He was going to sleep one way or another, and Kevin Lee was not going to let go. And Yamasaki, you know, I read a lot of research that said that blood flow needs to be restricted to the brain for a couple minutes before any brain damage can be counted on. Like, that's something that refs need to know. There's a difference between a quick stoppage when it's a TKO and it looks like a guy is taking unnecessary elbows or punches or what have you. That's present and future damage to the brain. A chokeout, if he had let Chiesa go completely to sleep, Faber Mizugaki style, yes, it's a terrifying visual, but ultimately Chiesa is still safe. So I feel like he needs to know that, and he needs to play that. If nothing else, man, at least check Chiesa's arm, right? You see refs do that all the time. Lift the arm up, hey, are you still there? He didn't even check. So it was a bad call by Yamasaki all the way, but it has layers, and I think that Lee was well on his way to winning that about 5 seconds later anyway. So for that reason, I want to see Lee take a step up the ladder. And hey, man, him and T-Ferg had some fun banter on Fox after that. So I'm down for some Lee T-Ferg action in Detroit. That I would absolutely be tuning into that. I would road trip to that fight for sure.
Maybe another road trip there, another Flow Combat road trip that could come out of that. And yeah, I agree with you. I'm surprised with Yamasaki because Yamasaki, he knows his grappling. He's been in the grappling game for a really long time. And like you mentioned, being choked out is a lot safer than getting knocked out. And I mean, a lot of us who have done grappling before, we've been choked out a number of times. As long as the choke gets let go pretty much soon after the choke out, it doesn't really cause any damage. But it was a very surprising result. Maybe a Code Brown from Chiesa would have saved him in that position. Who knows? It was the theme of the night. There was a guy ready with the mop. He was probably instructed, that is your job for the night. All future Code Browns will be cleaned up by you. Imagine that. Anyway, before we wrap this up, Dwayne, give us a couple of highlights. I know you, Hunter, and also James Lynch, which is someone we want to mention as well. James Lynch did a great job with you guys as well, and he's someone who doesn't get mentioned enough. So everybody go out there, make sure you check out James Lynch. He does a great job. But behind the scenes, we know there was a fan fest. Some of your biggest fans came down to have a beer with you guys. What was that like? And are there any other funny stories from your time behind the scenes covering the event in New York?
Yeah, man. We'll start with Lynch real quick. I want to say this, and something you guys already know, but Lynch, and like I feel like at Flow Combat right now, man, we have two of the biggest guys coming up in the future with Hunter and Hunter's a remarkable storyteller and working side by side with him, he's learning from me. He's learning from guys like Tom Gerbasi and Chuck Mendenhall. We have some good mentors for him. So Hunter's going to take this thing somewhere else. But Lynch, I believe it too. Lynch is great on camera, and as James pointed out during the week, he goes, what other outlet has two guys both doing on camera talent? Because Lynch and I were splitting them. I would do some and Lynch would do some, and I was like, you're right. But you know what? That shows there's no ego here at Flow. None. That, I don't care if I'm on camera. I'm getting kicked in the leg, but Lynch is smoothing his way through it. And, the funny thing is to the Fan Fest, man, like the first one we did was fantastic. This one was, even better. We
were at the first one. Remember, me and Casper, we were at the first one with you guys. We came up. Yeah. I believe I went up to Dwayne. I was like, Dwayne, I'm your biggest fan. Dwayne was like, who the hell are you?
I was like, hey man, you got $20. But no, man, yeah, and it was great to see you guys. And this one, guys, was just like the last one. A lot of industry guys were there, so it was a way for all of us media to get together and kick a few colds back. A lot of fans came through. Joe the man came up with his crew from Houston, so they swung through, and it was just a great time. But we hear this, we're starting to hear it more and more, and it's starting to stick because, the thing Hunter and I always talk about, we want to be MMA for the people. We know, like, dude, MMA fighting is great at what they do. Junkies is great at what they do, and we're just kind of a button down version. We do something else, man. So it's cool to coexist in those things. But, people tell us all the time, like, oh man, you guys are real, and we love that. And it's like, cool. Well, that's what we're not trying to be anything we're not. So I'll tell you a quick funny story. Afterwards, we ran the show wrapped up. We did our recap show out in front of Madison Square Garden. We wrapped that at 3 a.m. We ran back. Hunter was like, man, I don't want to carry this equipment anymore because we were going to try to find pizza and beer, like our vitamins. And and I was like, man, I don't know if we could find something. So we hoofed everything down. We got some glorious $1 slices. Hunter stopped at a bodega and got like 8 beers or a 6-pack and a couple talls. We headed back, and man, I will tell you that the first time in my life, my adult life, I was too tired to drink. I think I had one Coors. The sun was up. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. We had just processed the final video, and I was like, you know what, boys, this sucks because we're still up this long, but this is what it took, and I couldn't have been prouder of our crew there with Hunter Lynch in front row, all week, and then Hunter and I got 3 hours of sleep, and we were back on the road, so that was awesome.
Yeah, wow. And I mean, me and Casper know when it's one of these media weeks, it can get pretty crazy, and you don't get much sleep, and any opportunity that you get to have a beer, you take it. But yeah, there are those times where you can't drink a beer because you just don't even know where you are. You're so exhausted. But I'll tell you guys what, while we have you on the show, one of the great things that we love about you guys, and some of the things that listeners don't get to really understand is, there's a great community when it comes to MMA media, and I think you guys are a huge part of it where everyone's hanging out. People talk to each other. We all help each other out. No one's really going up against each other. We're all just working together. And I think it's important for people to understand that. I think a lot of times fans are like, oh, like I watch this coverage and, these guys must hate these other guys because these guys have this thing and these guys have that thing. And, having you guys around and a lot of the other guys that, come on the program, that there is a real kind of brotherhood when it comes to MMA media, and you guys are a huge part of that. So I just wanted to say that while you guys are on the show, and just so all the listeners know, Dwayne and Hunter are some of the best guys in the game, especially if you want to hang out, have a beer, and just have a bit of a chat. You guys are always really nice to everyone. So it's a pleasure to see how good everything is going for you guys. And guys, make sure to follow Dwayne and Hunter on Twitter. You can follow Dwayne at Dwayne Finley MMA and Hunter at Hunter A. Homerstack. Of course, go on flowcombat.com. The guys do amazing work, some of the best coverage. And Hunter, what is coming up in terms of local events that fans can check out?
Oh, man, we always have a ton of stuff coming up at Flow Combat. And before I get to that, I just want to say, man, the feelings are absolutely reciprocal. You guys, I always feel like you guys are some of the best in the business. You have that funny kind of attitude on Twitter that I love. You don't take this thing too seriously, as it shouldn't be. You take your work seriously, of course, and you do your thing. And that's much like us, take your work seriously and then have fun the rest of the time. So I love that about you guys. But on Flow Combat, man, we're always showing these regional fights, and that's the one thing that I really feel like sets us apart from the other guys. We're not strictly UFC coverage. We're not strictly Bellator coverage. We're covering these crazy-ass fights from all over the United States and all over the globe that you may not have heard of. And what I urge you to do is check out our top 10 videos. We've started doing a top 10 from our own events every week. It's the top 10 finishes from our events of every month, rather, not week. And it really showcases, because I know what you think about regional MMA is that, oh, it's such a step below UFC, Bellator. These guys don't know what they're doing. Man, we have some legitimate talent on these shows sometimes, and it's a good place to watch for prospects and everything like that. We've had Gerald Meerschaert just went to the UFC and has won twice, I think, since fighting on Flow. Eric Anders just won an LFA title. We've had these guys that start with Flow and then go on to the next level, and it's really exciting to see. So definitely check out some Flow Combat events, because they're just a good old time. And if you're a Just Bleed fan, I know Dwayne will back me up on this. There is no better place to just bleed than on the regional MMA circuit.
Oh, absolutely, man. And that's the thing is that you look at like Hannah Scoggins, who just won the IMA, the amateur, global thing over in Singapore. Dylan Calla, who's over here, he's moved up to LFA, so he's fighting. The thing is that Glow and I, we'd never covered regional stuff. It's hard to go from like John Jones exclusives to regional Tennessee, but at the same time, there's so much value there because now we can tell this story from the bottom to the top and the top to the bottom, and we've really embraced it. And I feel like fans are starting to understand it. Our numbers are great. We're delivering a great product, and if you look at it like the way Flow Sports is growing, the idea is to have sites like Flow Wrestling and Flow Track, who are our tentpole staple sites. They have great content and great live events, and then Flow Combat's here, doing the same. We have great content you guys can check out every day, and then we have great live events, and I think it's fantastic. So I want to echo what Hunter said about how much we dig you guys, man, because our whole thing is, interviewing fighters, man. That's all we ever do. And that's what you guys do. And you do it well. And you guys always have a smile on your face. And you're always good to take the piss out of anything, just like us. That's a Europe term, I guess. I don't know what the hell it means. I could say take the kiss out of everything. Whoa, Coach Brown, look out. But yeah, man, you guys we're all in this together, and even sometimes we won't agree on some things, we're all fighting the good fight. So keep up the good work, gents, and we'll catch you with the cold gimmicks next time around.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully that's going to be soon. So there you go, fans. For anyone thinking that all the media are like the media in Anchorman, where we're all fighting each other with pitchforks and there's someone holding a grenade, it's not like that at all. It's more like a brotherhood. I don't know, like Robin Hood, Men in Tights. But with that, guys, that is it. That is the end of another episode. Of course, make sure to check out Dwayne Finley and Hunter Homestead on Twitter, Dwayne Finley MMA, and at Hunter A. Homestead. A big thank you to all our guests this week. Big thank you to Johnny Hendricks. Big thank you to Bas Rutten. Big thank you to Vanderlei Silva. Big thank you to Ryan Bader. And, of course, Dwayne Finley and Hunter Homestead, who just jumped on the program with us. That is it for another episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Hit us up at Twitter, at SubmissionAUS, and we will catch you guys next week with another episode.